Council will come to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And will the city clerk please call the roll?
Vice President Anderson,
Here.
Berge, Christofferson,
Here.
Belton, Gregor,
Here.
Johnson, Jones,
Here.
Imboga,
Present.
Miller,
Here.
Schoen,
Here.
Worthman,
Here.
And welcome to the Tuesday, January 23rd meeting of the Eau Claire City Council. Thank you to everyone for being here for our legislative session. Also, thank you to those listening or watching at home. If people are interested in watching our council meetings online, you can go to eauclairewi.gov/meetings to find the link. You may have noticed I'm not President Berge. President Berge has been invited by Governor Evers to attend the State of the State address and events tonight. So I think this is a great opportunity for her to build relationships and advocate for our city at a state level. So I'm very pleased that she was able to go. The first item that will be up tonight is our consent agenda. Some of you may be here for a consent agenda item. So please know that unless an item is pulled out for separate consideration, all of the items will pass or fail with one vote. Do council members have questions regarding the consent agenda or wish to remove any items for separate consideration? Then on a motion by Councilmember Miller and seconded by Councilmember Johnson, the consent agenda has been moved. Is there any discussion?
Excuse me.
Oh.
Councilmember Johnson's not present.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. This is what happens when you're new here. It would be by Councilmember Jones. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, City Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice President Anderson,
Aye.
Christofferson,
Aye.
Gregor,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Imboga,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Schoen,
Aye.
Worthman.
Aye.
And that item passes unanimously. Up next, we have our proclamations. Let's see, so. And is Charles Woods here today?
Yes.
Hi, Charles. I'm Emily Anderson. Nice to meet you. Thank you so much for being here and for your service on the BIPOC Steering Committee. Today, we are proclaiming Black History Month. I could read the proclamation out loud, and then if you want to say a couple words, you can, or you can just accept the proclamation. Whereas during Black History Month, we seek to celebrate the many notable contributions that people of African descent have made to our economic, cultural, spiritual, and political development. And whereas the observance of Black History Month celebrates the achievements of people of African descent while calling attention to the continued need to identify and battle racial bias and institutional racism wherever it exists. And whereas the city of Eau Claire is working to advance racial justice and equity in our organization and community and encourage all people to recognize and confront barriers to equity and justice at every opportunity. Whereas our nation was founded on the idea that everyone is created equal and deserves to be treated with equal dignity throughout our lives. Whereas we recognize this year's Black History Month theme of African Americans and the arts, and recognize that in the fields of visual and performing arts, literature, fashion, music, architecture, and all other forms of cultural expression, the African American influence has been paramount. Now, therefore, I, Emily Anderson, Vice President of the Eau Claire City Council, on behalf of the entire
How everyone doing today? I am always thankful and appreciative to be at an event like this. Thank you. I give thanks and I am appreciative to be able to speak in honor of my forefathers and my ancestors, and in honor of Black people, or as I would call them, the original people of this land. Me personally, I don't refer to myself as African American. I do refer to myself as Black, or the original one of this land, part of the original people of this land. I would like to say, coming off the heels of Martin Luther King birthday, and now embarking on to Black History Month, we must call to mind that by acknowledging Martin Luther the King and all he stood for, then you are acknowledging that you are in full support of the liberation of Black Americans and the original people of this land. By acknowledging Black History Month or support thereof, then you are acknowledging that Black people, or the original people, history is the history that everything derived from. For the record, Black history, nor the struggle of my forefathers, was not all embedded in slavery. For Black people, or as I term them, the original people of this here land, was and still is great thinkers, builders, and peaceful people unless provoked. At this moment in time in history, we as a people are still fighting for and over inequality, injustice, racial discrimination, poverty, voting rights, recidivism, basic human needs, police brutality, and the outright denial of independent economic growth. So at this moment, I would ask everyone to reflect on the state we are now back in after my recent forefathers already died for these causes. And yet America has yet to respect my forefathers, nor the children of my ancestors, enough to reconciliate with us and seek forgiveness and work tirelessly to bring the King dream alive. Because at this point in time, we have spent too much time wasting time acting as if though the dream is active and well in America. And we all know that just simply isn't so. But I also would like to say I appreciate all you all for acknowledging today. I appreciate all you all for stepping up, giving us some type of recognition. I appreciate all you all for standing in the fight, because it's a constant fight and it's a constant struggle. I want to know that firsthand. I appreciate you all. Thank you. Black History Month.
Thank you. Next, we are honoring Transit Equity Day, and I believe we have Tyler Fadness, Bill Swanhurst, and Nate Nispel to accept that proclamation. So I can deliver the proclamation, and then each of you can speak, or however you want to arrange your speaking. That would be great. So whereas Transit Equity Day is a national day of action to commemorate the February 4th birthday of Rosa Parks, to remember and celebrate the invaluable work of Rosa Parks and continue to find the means to create conditions for all people to thrive and proactively address disparities in health, social, and economic disparity. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Vice President Anderson. I'll say a few words, and then Transit Commission Chair Phil Swanhorst will say a few words after me. On December 1st, 1955, after a long day of work as a seamstress, Rosa Parks was riding a crowded Montgomery, Alabama city bus when the driver asked Parks and other black passengers to surrender their seats to white passengers who were standing. 3 of the passengers left their seats, but Parks refused. She subsequently was arrested and fined $14, which she did not pay. Instead, she accepted an offer to help appeal the conviction, thus challenging legal segregation in Alabama. Parks' actions inspired the leaders of the local black community to organize the Montgomery bus boycott. Led by a young Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., even people outside Montgomery embraced the cause. Protests of segregated restaurants, pools, and other public facilities took place all over the United States. As appeals and related lawsuits made their way through the courts, all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court, the boycott lasted 381 days. People of color made up nearly 70% of the ridership, and the absence of their bus fares cut deeply into revenue. On November 13, 1956, the U.S. Supreme Court upheld a lower court's decision declaring Montgomery's segregated bus seating unconstitutional. A court order to integrate the buses was served on December 20th. The boycott ended the following day, and Rosa Parks will forever be remembered for her role in the bus boycott in Montgomery, Alabama. Though legally sanctioned racial discrimination in public transit has ended, barriers to adequate public transit access remain, making it harder for people, particularly people of color and people in poverty, to get where they need to go. On Transit Equity Day, we seek to recognize that everyone has a right to safe, reliable, and accessible transportation, and everyone deserves an affordable public transit system that connects people throughout their communities. On that day, what we'll do is we're going to have one of these posters on each of the bus seats on our city buses. We'll have a sash. The local ATU is going to be purchasing roses that go on each of the seats as well, and then we're also going to have all the paratransit vehicles recognize that day with a rose as well. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Council Vice President Anderson, Council people, General. I am going to read to you in my writing what I did 4 years ago. Virtually, we had to meet the first Transit Equity Day proclamation by President Weld, and I sat in my apartment to read this response, and I think the words are as appropriate today as it was then. The first proclamation in the state of Wisconsin was here in Wisconsin, here in Eau Claire. So I think it's relative to hear these words once again. I don't think a whole bunch of people were listening to me in my apartment that day. I am honored to receive this proclamation today on behalf of all Eau Claire City residents. Most government functions are done to help solve problems in our community. We react to these problems and seek solutions. And it is a good thing that this is what we do. This proclamation, however, strives to improve our standard of living by recognizing the inequities which do exist, both economic and socially, and then to proactively work to reduce these inequities. I feel this proclamation provides a progressive goal for all of us to work towards trying to achieve. I realize limitations will be acknowledged. However, trying for these improvements in our community does not stop. Again, I thank you very much.
Now we can move to our business agenda. And the first item on our business agenda is a resolution approving appointments and reappointments to various boards, commissions, and committees. Councilmember Miller, did you want to introduce this?
Yes, thank you, Council Vice President Anderson. The Advisory Committee on Appointments met to fill the role on a Plan Commission that was open, and after meeting, we recommend for approval Kyle Sersniak to be appointed to the Plan Commission on an unexpired term to expire on April 30th, 2026.
And let's see, are there any questions from anyone? Then let's see, by a motion made by Councilmember Worthman and Councilmember Christopherson, this item is moved. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Christopherson,
Aye.
Gregor,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Imboga,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Schoen,
Aye.
Worthman,
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye. And that item passes unanimously. Our next item is item number 14, a final resolution approving the project and levying special assessments for improvements on the following alleys. Alley east of Dewey Street, Earl Street to North End. Alley east of 4th Street, Fountain Street to North End. Alley east of 5th Street, Fountain Street to Marshall Street. Alley south of Emery Street, Culver Street to Fleming Avenue. Alley north of Roosevelt Avenue, Park Avenue to State Street. Alley east of Whipple Street, Maxon Street to Platt Street. Alley south of Lake Street, 6th Avenue to East Alley. Alley east of 6th Avenue, Hudson Street to Lake Street. On a motion made by Councilmember Gregor and Councilmember Schoen, this item is moved. Did we want to have Ms. Ness up again for any questions or anything like that? Is there any discussion? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Gregor,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Imboga,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Schoen,
Aye.
Worthman,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Christopherson.
Aye.
And that item passes unanimously. Our next item is street and utility improvements, a final resolution approving the project and levying special assessments for street and utility improvements on Oakwood Hills Parkway, Cypress Street to Gulf Road. Are there any questions for Ms. Ness? Seeing none, the item is moved by Councilmember Mboga and Councilmember Miller. This item is moved. Is there any discussion? Yes, Councilmember Gregor.
Yeah, thank you, Vice President Anderson. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this project. I think that, I was encouraged to hear about some of the study work that the engineering department is going to do about trying to improve some of the pedestrian crossings, and I think a lot of that work, can also include like how to make it safer for bicyclists to cross, because it is a pretty wide road right now, and this project isn't really one where we can change that all that much. So yeah, just wanted to show some appreciation for the attention to this project as it moves forward. So thanks.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion on this item? Okay. Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Imboga,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Schoen,
Aye.
Worthman,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Christopherson,
Aye.
Gregor.
Aye.
And that item passes unanimously. Next, we are looking at item number 16, a resolution accepting a donation of 2 rectangular rapid flashing beacon traffic signals for installation near the intersection of Fifth Avenue, Chestnut Street, and Whipple Street, Randall Street. And I believe Ms. Ness will be presenting. Oh, you're already.
Good afternoon. A rapid rectangular flashing beacon is a traffic control device that is designed to increase drivers' awareness of pedestrians and bicyclists crossing roadways, either at mid-block intersections or at marked intersections that are uncontrolled. The location on the left of your screen is an existing RRFB that is located at Roosevelt and State Street that was installed a couple years ago. And we've seen good compliance with the installation of this and heightened awareness of pedestrian activity at that location. The city has had success with these. The proposed donation would be installed by the city electrician. It would be an a solar-powered unit, and the city would maintain the equipment moving forward. The 2 locations are located along Whipple Street and Bellinger or 5th Street, and both locations have a very high pedestrian crossing rate at those locations. We are appreciative of the donation and ask for support in this effort.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Dr. Jones.
Thank you, Vice President. Thank you, Ms. Ness, for the presentation. When you say good compliance, what does that entail?
Compliance, just I'd say a higher rate of motor vehicles stopping or yielding for pedestrians crossing within the crosswalk, and the pedestrian having more confidence in having visual contact with the motorists for that crossing.
Thank you. Councilmember Miller.
Thank you, Council Vice President. Director Ness, I'd like to give thanks for things to do. Is the donor anonymous in this donation?
Yes.
Okay, very well.
Any further questions? Thank you, Ms. Ness.
Thank you.
Seeing none, this item is moved by Councilmember Johnson and Councilmember Jones. Is there any discussion? Thank you. I'd just like to say that I'm really appreciative of this donation, and I'm a huge supporter of pedestrian safety and people getting involved to help in whatever way they can in that effort. So thank you to our donor. All right. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Jones,
Aye.
Imboga,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Schoen,
Aye.
Worthman,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Christofferson,
Aye.
Gregor.
Aye.
Thank you. And that item passes unanimously.
Vice President Anderson,
Oh,
I wasn't called.
That's because I have it highlighted. You weren't here, I'm sorry.
You're good.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
that's the only one I get, sorry.
thank you. And item number 17 is a resolution approving a simplified rate case to increase the water utility rates by 8% within the City of Eau Claire schedule of fee and licenses effective February 1st, 2024. Are there any questions for staff on this one? I'm not seeing any, so this item will be moved by Councilmember Worthman and Councilmember Christofferson. Now the item is moved. Is there any discussion? Oh, Councilmember Christofferson.
Thank you, Council Vice President. I just want to acknowledge from the presentation last night the stewarding of our utilities, the health of the water, but also the careful way that we monitor the cost of what is excellent water. I grew up in South Dakota, and that was terrible water. But we don't like to see rates go up, but again, it's done in a very measured way, a very conservative way, and it really guards a very important resource that Eau Claire has. And I just want to recognize the importance of this piece of legislation.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Okay. Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Mboga,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Schoen,
Aye.
Worthman, Anderson,
Aye.
Christofferson,
Aye.
Gregor,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
and Jones.
Aye.
And that item passes unanimously. Our next item is the resolution approving the Housing Opportunities Commission 2024 Annual Work Plan. Is Ms. Hufford available to speak?
Good evening. Thank you, Vice President Anderson, council members. I'll just quickly give an update to last year first and then some highlights for the coming year. So Scott Allen, if you guys remember him, handed Hawk off to me last year. So took on a lot of great work that he was previously doing and hopefully continued at least as well as he did. So we put together some different things to help monitor our housing inventory. We started sharing permit data, which doesn't necessarily talk about or show housing that's coming online, but it gives us an idea of the permits being pulled. We hope to expand that this year to figure out how we can show when those permits are being completed and that housing is becoming available. We also do affordable housing updates, so any projects out there that are targeting affordable rates, we update as we see them progress. We also started sharing a coordinated entry list. This is a list of our homeless population looking for housing, different stages, categories of homelessness. Although our work isn't necessarily it's more housing than homelessness. Knowing how many individuals are in need of housing and unable to find housing is very important in the work that we do. Ordinance and policy review. Planning did come. They spent some time talking with the Housing Opportunities Commission to learn their thoughts and concerns with the zoning code update, needs with that. We also completed the regional housing study this year. We had a lot of conversations in our HAWK meetings as information came out, shared it, and any input we took back. Funding affordable housing. We updated the affordable housing scoring criteria. We spent quite a bit of time talking about that, what the priorities were, and made some significant changes to that. And I'll talk more about that for 2024 and going forward. We started talking about ARPA proposals, and we received money for a community land trust and a community development corporation, and those will be two of our biggest things to work through this year. With that, we also did a land trust presentation to help start laying the groundwork for that, what it is, and start getting ideas out there on what we would do. We did another regional housing conference. I believe both years we've been very successful with it. This year, I think we had a much greater variety of industries that were present at the conference. So that was really nice. We also had many speakers that came in, including Kelly from United Way, who presented on the ALICE report. AARP came in and talked about communities for all ages, and our very own Erin did a presentation on city incentives, RDA, and things like that. Hopefully it wasn't just for HAWK. Hopefully the community was able to learn from those presentations also. We also talked about a process to be involved in affordable housing projects that are coming to Plan Commission and Council. Although Plan Commission and Council can't vote on affordability, we talked about how HAWK can be a part of talking about them and what they may be able to do to help move those forward, because they are just good projects, not just because of affordability. Moving forward in 2024, the plan looks largely the same. Like I said, we will work on tracking growth and decline in housing and what that looks like beyond just permits. Continue work with city ordinance and policy review. We have had requests to go out and share the housing study with the public, looking at what that looks like. And there has been conversation about possibly drafting a housing plan or toolkit. And I think that's something we could start discussing this year, but maybe 2025's a year that we dive into that. And that's because funding affordable housing will be our biggest task this year. The Community Land Trust and the Community Development Corporation for Housing will be our biggest things to tackle, and we need to make sure we get those done this year. We are talking what the Regional Housing Conference looks like. Is it, again, a big event every year? It does take a lot of time to put that on, or do we look at different models of what that looks like? Promote home ownership. Again, we're working on the Community Land Trust, which will help promote home ownership to people who typically would not be able to enter the market, and looking at other alternatives. I believe you guys talked last night about a project from Tenable Homes. So looking at more of those and how we can bring projects like that to the community that can create more affordable home ownership options. And then creating public-private partnerships. We have had conversations about a housing resources workshop as we work through the affordable housing process. And at our last conference, we learned that not everybody in the community may be aware of WHEDA, all the things that happen with WHEDA, all the other agencies out there where funding may come from. So trying to see how we can do a workshop that helps inform many different organizations. And again, working on the, I'm calling it Housing Development Fund now, the Community Development Corporation model for housing funding. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
And thank you. Councilmember Schoen.
Thank you, Council Vice President. And thank you, Ms. Hufford. I have a question, and I anticipate that you might not be able to give an answer to this, but with the recent news that just came out yesterday with respect to the healthcare providers in our area that will be leaving, I'm wondering if within this work plan would, perhaps under the portion of the work plan related to creating public-private partnerships, or maybe some of the other categories, would the Housing Opportunities Commission be able, with the current work plan, to kind of consider maybe some of the infrastructure in the community as it might relate to some of the other projects this commission is working on?
Yeah, we definitely can. I think as part of the housing study, it's a living document that as events happen, it's going to, change that in various ways. So taking a look at that again and reassessing needs in the community and how we may create some partnerships to address some of those needs. It'll be an ongoing thing. And if I can add one thing, we will do another update of the affordable housing proposal criteria, and I'll talk about that more as to why in my next presentation.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you, Vice President Anderson. Thank you, Ms. Hufford. So this regional housing study that was completed, and I think it was sent out to the council a couple months ago or something like that. I was wondering if that's going to be something that we'll be diving into. I haven't actually read it yet, for example, but is there going to be a discussion among the council about it, or a presentation about what the findings were, and then?
Yeah, we can definitely do a work session to present that. There's been conversation of how do we get it out to the wider community, so I think it's all part of that conversation, and how do we get it out to everybody, but we'll definitely get a work session on that.
Just
If I can just chime in too, it relates to other work we're doing, like the zoning overhaul and the comprehensive plan. So the findings kind of roll into the next steps of our planning or even strategic planning. So we could also, that would be another option, is to fold it into those discussions, because it's really the evidence that undergirds the other work.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions? And thank you, Sefred. And now by a motion by Councilmember Gregor and Councilmember Schoen, this item is moved. Is there any discussion? Yeah, Councilmember Christopherson.
Thank you, Council Vice President. I have the privilege of representing the council on the Housing Opportunities Commission this year. And under Ms. Hubbard's leadership, it really is a very productive group. And I just want to remind people and remember with you that this is the response that the council chose to that Housing Opportunities Task Force that went on for 2+ years and included Altoona. And this particular group also takes a wider view of what the resources of our community is. It's not specifically, but it's regionally recognizing that people move because they have to move. For example, in the conversations, we will look at how our decisions impact outer county and whether or not we can build relationships with outer county resources that then improve the opportunities for people that are in the municipality. But as you look at this work plan and the presentation, I just want you to appreciate the breadth and depth of what this group is willing and able to do, and the kind of partnerships and bringing in things that don't require the municipality to be the starting energy or the starting money, but does provide a link to people that are looking for a way to participate in a very real and important obstacle and opportunity in the community.
Thank you, Councilmember Christopherson. Other comments? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Miller.
Aye.
Schoen.
Aye.
Worthman.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Christopherson.
Aye.
Gregor.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
And Boga.
Aye.
And that passes unanimously. The next item is item 19, a resolution authorizing affordable housing grants recommended by the Housing Opportunities Commission in the amount of $200,000 to Home for Good and $75,000 to Eau Claire Area Hmong Mutual Assistance Association. And Ms. Heffer, did you want to say a few words?
Thank you again, Vice President Berge, council members. We've done the Affordable Housing Fund for, I think, about 5 years now. We had some years that kind of merged together through COVID, and there were larger awards. This year we had $275,000 to work from. We put out a proposal in a request for proposals last fall with the end of November due date. We received a total of 3 proposals. One of them was not complete and we could not accept it. The remaining 2 came from Eau Claire Area Hmong Mutual Assistance Association and Home for Good, working with Habitat for Humanity. So we have shared both of those with you. I will say on the cover sheet, there is a error where it says Prairie Heights residents. We did not have a proposal from them. So the resolution does correctly state what Housing Opportunities Commission did recommend. So first, the Eau Claire Area Hmong Mutual Assistance Association, they're looking to remodel or repair existing housing. Their proposal is requesting $250,000, which would be funding of $20,833 per unit. They have a total of 16 units that they're looking at in the proposal. And they vary at different income levels, including fair market rent, but also some that are well below 30%. With the scoring, there are 3 bedrooms, and that did make a difference in the scoring criteria. 5 of them would be looked at as supportive housing with Section 870, plus having a rental liaison that not only would help in those units, but overall in the community. Going back to the Affordable Housing Fund scoring, we did recognize that with this project, the scoring that we had was difficult, even though this is something that, per the whole proposal, request for proposal, everything through the documentation was definitely eligible. There was some difficulties. So it is multi-site. So we didn't really know how do we score transit, walkability, proximity to other service providers and locations, because some may be close, some may not. So that was really difficult to judge based on the scoring criteria that we have. Just sharing some of that, all units are within a quarter mile of a transit stop. Walk score on 3 units is over 50. 9 units was at 47, 4 units under 35. You know, like I said, no real way to figure it out. If you look at an average, they're at 44. Existing units, they will have inclusive design items added where possible, but this is another difficulty in the scoring because being existing and sometimes older housing, it's not as easy to bring in those elements. And we did have a couple of scoring corrections. 7A would have been 13 instead of 65, and 4 would have been 0 instead of 7. So their total final points were 107. Next, the Home for Good and Habitat for Humanity proposal. They are proposing a community land trust. They're requesting $250,000. One of those is incorrect, I apologize. 12 out of 12 of their units will be 3-bedroom homes to be sold to residents making 30 to 50%. And each organization is here and they can talk about the total that they submitted and the amount each. Sorry about that. All of their units, if they're looking at one site, it is within a quarter mile of a transit, but they have also had some discussions on some possible other sites. So again, with that kind of a difficulty in scoring, because they think it's more about the concept. They do have a walk score that was just under 50. I'm sorry, some reason the wrong PowerPoint got saved. But they are just right there also. So both of these projects were really good. This one ended up with 116 total scored. So they were a little higher if you go by the score than the other one. But again, they're hard to score in the way that the criteria was set up. So we sent both of them to the Housing Opportunities Commission, let them discuss them, decide what they wanted to recommend, and then they did put through the proposal to fund $200,000 to Home for Good for the Community Land Trust and $75,000 to the Eau Claire Area Hmong Mutual Assistance Association to help remodel some of their units. Both projects fit within the work plan of providing new affordable housing and retaining affordable housing. And they also fall within your guys's plans of what you want to see in the community. So both projects are very good projects, and I'm glad that I don't have to make the decision. But both the proposals, both organizations are here. They do have some information to share. I just did them in alphabetical order, so no particular order.
Hello. Just thank you so much for taking the time and letting us be a part of this. And thank you for, just looking at our grant application and our supporting documents. I know we came with a lot, but it's because this program that we have is so important to us in our organization. ECMA has been assisting low individuals and families in securing affordable housing for many years. Whether we're leasing our 16 units at a fair or very below market rental rates to low-income families or facilitating their search for affordable housing, our organization has been a reliable resource in addressing housing challenges. Recognizing the pressing issue of housing scarcity, we are dedicated to sustaining our mission of providing affordable housing to our low-income community members. However, to continue to do our impactful work, we seek your support. Many of our units require essential updates, and you guys will see that when Paku goes through this PowerPoint, to ensure a secure living environment for our current and future tenants. The grant will not only enable us to maintain our properties at safe living standards, but also empower us to keep rental rates as reasonable as possible, differentiating us from other rental properties. Ensuring the safety and longevity of our units is so important. Without adequate funding, we may be compelled to sell properties that become financially burdensome to repair. This presents an uncertain future, as there is no assurance that the subsequent landlords or property owners will continue to keep the rent at a low rental cost that we do. So as requested, we have photos and bids, an Excel sheet with the units that need the most urgent and priority fixings. This was requested of us when we had brought our proposition over. And you can see that after getting these bids from our contractors, the cost for these urgent and priority fixes exceeds more than $100,000. One of the urgent projects is the walkway at our 8-unit building at Meridian Heights, which this is from the contractor's assessment, highlighting that inspecting the front 2-story deck walkway resulted in major concerns with posts, joists, beams, and subflooring. Above all, the current ledger beam is twisted out away from the joist at the bottom by over an inch and is in serious risk of failing. So rectifying this walkway alone costs almost $25,000. So if we take this into account of the $75,000, we would get that's already a third of the work that we will only be getting done. I know that there's not a lot of time, so I'm not going to read everything here, but I just want to give you the sense of urgency that we have for these homes, as well as knowing that the $75,000 would not, it would only help us minimally. What that means that it's only going to help minimal amount of our community members, which is always the marginalized folks that live in our homes. So I'll let Paku explain more and go through the PowerPoint.
Hey, good evening, everyone. My name is Paku. I am the grant specialist at Hmong Mutual Assistance Association. The request is for us to come back with a budget for $75,000, but I'm requesting for at least $2,000.
I mean, 200.
200,000 or 210. So the housing issue is like math. You know, like we have the answer over here. Okay, we're having people that are, you know, they don't have housing. We have homelessness. We have a rising cost of housing. And in math class, when you have an answer, you have to work backwards, right? So the way I kind of look at this housing situation is we've already looked at this in a way of like we're building, we keep building. Let's have a different perspective. Let's go in and look at people who are already renting at a very low cost and why they're selling their units and why they're not keeping their units. So my mom rents a unit right behind our unit, Meridian Heights. The current landlord, the previous landlord, was renting it at $575. Less than a year, they sold it. Maintenance was hard to keep. And now my mom is paying $700. Okay, so keep that in mind. So what happens when we don't help landlords who are providing affordable, very, 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 very affordable housing? They sell it, and then property managers come in, raise the rent. By the way, there's no statutes that says they cannot. So what we're trying to do is request for maintenance to keep these unit affordable, truly affordable. Meridian Heights rents at $615. Now let this sink in, everyone. $615. Okay, who else is renting at $615? But that doesn't mean just because you rent at $615, you have to live in a horrible condition. Okay, what we're asking for is just, we're not looking to upgrade. We're not looking to make it look real nice and pretty. We're looking to make it decent. Okay, so for the walkway, we received bid for the walkway. I don't know if you guys got any of this material, but I can kind of go over it. The total cost for the walkway is going to be $36,955.
It's 24.
Oh, 2447. But there's also other additional things like sidewalk, gutter repair, foundation repair, grading to avoid water pooling. So all that for just Meridian Heights, the unit, is $36,655. Okay. Unit 1 needs a complete remodel. If I go back here, you can see the bathroom, the units, the ceiling. It's not in the best shape. And that is going to cost $1,620. Unit 2 has 2 elderly couple, and they've been living there forever. So they have nowhere else to go. And that to remodel would cost $14,720. These numbers also include hotel stays. So when we take someone out, we have to put them somewhere. And this is at an average price of $90 for 28 days. I did look at our hotel rates. Our highest is at $150. Our lowest is at like $60 or $50. But that would mean they would be staying at like a Motel 6 or something like that. So 90 is the average. Unit 3 is going to cost $18,590. And again, hotel stay. So next, does anybody have a question about the Meridian Heights before I move on? Okay.
Councilmember Schoen? Yeah, I have one quick question about the walkway repair included in the budget. Would that benefit only one unit, or would that benefit multiple units?
Multiple units,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
The 4 on top, yeah.
Okay, and then next is our Spring Street. If you look at the picture, there is molding, and I've worked with a molding company going back and forth on why there's molding, and the conclusion to that is that it could be because of a roof. Now, we're in the middle of winter. No roofing company really wants to come out right now. So we're still waiting for actual bids from the contractor. These are estimates. So it's a duplex, 610 and 612, and we're looking at $23,000 for a new roof, mold treatment, replacing installation. Okay, so Bell Street, Seymour, Uranus, Jar, those are our other units. Those are full house, right?
Yes, those are full house.
And those are just single homes. So Bell Street, we're looking to replace the deck and the stairs. The deck cannot be used if it's dangerous. We can't use that anymore. Kitchen, upstairs, basement, tree removal. Seymour is the same thing, bathroom, molding, window repairs. Uranus is a tree removal. That's dangerous for our units, our tenants who have kids. And then Gerard is windows.
Updated windows.
Yeah. Okay, so that's asking for the $200,000, okay? The first budget that I've given you guys is a total of 200, the actual number is 209,75. So round it up, 210. And this does include a housing liaison, 46,000 for when the project starts until the project ends. I'm estimating at least a year. No benefits, okay? This will be able to fund our projects, and it will allow us, most importantly, to keep rent low. Not affordable, low, okay, like 615 low. And it will also improve the living condition of our current tenants. Now, if we didn't get the 210, then I guess, you know, I'm proposing a second budget. This is for a total of $177,990. So 178. And this will include Meridian Heights, the walkway, the remodel for the 3 units, Spring Street, and that's it. The Bell Street, Seymour, Uranus, Girard. Those, I guess, we'll have to figure out another way to get that fixed. So this will fund our priority projects. Again, a contractor or a project manager for at least a year, $46,000, no benefits. And this, again, will keep some of our units low, but we will have to find other resources for the other units. Any question before I move on? Yeah.
Thank you for,
Okay.
Council President, Council Vice President.
Please go ahead, Councilmember Worthman.
Thank you. Thank you for this detailed information and for all the work that you're doing to try and bring this together. I think my question is around the process of, I assume that these two different budget recommendations were made to the housing opportunities, but they, for some reason, selected the amount that we have in front of us here. Do I understand that correctly? Was there a reason given that they didn't go for this larger 200,000?
Yeah, you know, to respond to you, Andrew Worthman, is because I think when we came and did the presentation, there was a miscommunication between the housing liaison position. It was calculated that it would be for $45,000 for every single year. And when we came back and we were sitting, I said to Pico, I'm like, that's not correct. We only written it for each project. So yes, it would be for the full amount of time. But I think because of that huge, if you took 45,000 multiplied by 3, then there was a large sum of money that was then deducted from the total that we had asked for. So when we went back and we checked through our documents, and it was that we didn't ask for 45,000 per year. It was supposed to be just to help with all the projects.
And also to note, when we went into the housing meeting, a budget was not requested. So we were just going based off of the requirements, criteria, and we didn't really, there wasn't any budget that we had to show up with. It was just come with, you know, whatever you guys have, the requirements that you guys went through. So we didn't have a budget at the time. We had a estimated budget, but now these are actual numbers.
Actual bids from
contractors. Anyone else?
Any other questions, or would you like a follow-up? Thank you. Is there anything else that you'd like to share about these projects?
Oh yeah. So the last budget is the $86,000, and that would just cover Meridian Heights. That's it. So we would just be going in and doing the walkway, the remodeling. This would not cover a property manager or housing liaison, but with no one to really be in charge of this project, we really don't have the capacity. We will try our best to stretch our people, but, you know, ideally, I would like for a budget for someone that would be in charge of this project. But $86,000 would just do Meridian Heights Walkway, Unit 1, Unit 2, and Unit 3 remodel, and that's about it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Councilmember Jones has a question?
Thank you, Vice President. Thank you, Paku, for your presentation. Across the spectrum of all your different apartments and dwellings, how many occupants will we be talking about? When you consider all of the dwellings that you mentioned here, how many people?
How many people?
So we have, at Meridian Heights, we have 8 units. In each of those units, there are at least 2 people living there. And they're not just Hmong descent or, you know, just not Hmong folks. We have families. I don't know the actual numbers, but I could tell you that if we lose one of this property, we have a lot of homelessness potential in these folks because they are very low income across the board to all of our units. They either are on SSI, some type of government assistant. So if we lose any units, it could potentially mean, you know, homelessness for these folks.
I would say around 40 to 50 people, yeah.
That was my follow-up. If you could take a guess. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you so much. And is maybe Ms. Hubbard, are you available for another question?
Thanks for the opportunity to ask a follow-up. I'm just sort of, I guess my question here would be, normally housing opportunities would receive the request after a budget has been calculated so that the ask reflects what the final need is. That didn't happen in this case, but I think one of the things we'll probably want to know is how much is in that fund if we were to make a different decision than what's being.
$275,000 total. Yeah. And they did come with information about how much they needed and a breakdown, but not exact estimates.
Okay.
And that's what Hawk asked for. And both came with the same type of budget type information, but
So Hawk understood there was a greater need than what was.
I think them allocating to both, they understood that both were a great need in the community, and trying to figure out, it was a difficult decision, a very lengthy conversation on how to.
Thank you.
Dr. Jones?
Thank you, Vice President. Ms. Hubbard, was this the first time that the Hmong Association applied for this grant?
Yes.
Was it the first?
Previously, it's been larger LIHTC type projects, and we discovered through this process that the scoring that was created years ago is more suited to those types of projects, even though these types of projects, both of these are eligible, the scoring may not be the best for them. So going forward in 2024, we'll have a huge discussion about that and what the scoring proposal method should look like so that it is favorable to anybody who may be coming with the type of proposals we're looking for.
Quick follow. Just one quick follow.
Please.
Was that the same for the other organization as well? This was the first time
Yes.
that they applied?
Yes, both of them. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
And Councilmember Moga?
Thank you, Vice President Mr. Anderson. Ms. Hartford, yeah, I have help me out to understand a little bit about the scoring criteria? The Home for Good criteria was 116, and the Mang Mutual Association was 107, something like that?
Yes. Let me go back. Um, 116 for Home for Good and 107.
Yeah. So if you look, that's a difference of 9 points, I think. But
yes.
The Home for Good is going to get 200, and the Mang Mutual 75. Is that really fair?
That was a decision made by the Housing Opportunities Commission, and I think, as it was stated, they were looking at the housing liaison. There was an also with the Home for Good, the need to acquire the land within a certain time frame and funding available. I think that might have been part of the decision also.
Further questions? And is the other applicant desiring to speak, or?
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Austri Graysart, and I'm the Program Director of Home for Good, and I'm presenting here with...
I'm John Dawson with Chippewa Valley Habitat for Humanity.
And we are here to present our project, which is an affordable housing development that would be sustainable housing through a community land trust to create homes and a homeownership opportunity for 12 low-income families. And I need to take a moment just to address our previous applicant's situation. So I'm the Program Director of Home for Good, which seeks to create and provide safe and affordable housing for families with children who are experiencing housing insecurity in downtown Eau Claire. And 1 year ago, I was in the same situation, a similar situation, to the Hmong Mutual Assistance Association, where I was working with some housing that was substandard for families that deserve dignified housing. And so I very much relate to the situation that they are in. And I'd like to offer right now, as we've reached out just previously, our partnership with the Hmong Mutual Assistance Association in addressing that situation. I have a project manager that I'm willing to share. Habitat for Humanity has funding and volunteers that they are willing to contribute. We discussed this earlier this week to help improve the situation for our neighbors in these homes. And I also believe that they deserve some funding. So I just want to start by saying that. So to explain this project, this is a exciting opportunity for us to initiate a community land trust in Eau Claire in partnership with Habitat. The opportunity to purchase this land pictured on Dorrit Road expires January 31st, which is why we applied for this RFP in order to get the down payment money needed to acquire the property in order for Habitat to develop it.
So Habitat is pretty darn good at building affordable housing. We typically build houses for about 75% of the total value of the home. One of the challenges that we face is that those homes might not stay affordable forever. The great thing about a community land trust is it causes that home to continue to be affordable. So when we, in Habitat, for example, we just finished a house on Mercury. And that house, the person will take out a mortgage about $150,000, but the house valued at $224,000. So we hold a second mortgage on that, so they can't flip the house. But over time, that second mortgage will go away, and then they can sell the house to somebody else, and eventually it's outside of the affordable housing pool. Mm-hmm. So the great thing about land trusts is it forces, with the bylaws of the land trust, forces the homes not to go up in value that much, and also restricts what the houses can be sold for. It's a beautiful model. We're excited to be part of that. And so it's really taking two nonprofits that do good for housing and putting them together and doing even better things with housing. So.
Thank you. Any questions? I just have one. I wasn't quite clear when you mentioned possibly collaborating with repairing some of these older homes. Have you had much opportunity to sit down with the folks from Hmong Mutual and chat about that, or what's the process been like?
I've reached out a few times, but I know that there's a lot happening, and I think probably one of the things happening was preparing for this. So I haven't heard back yet, but I'm hoping that we can collaborate after this meeting. And I believe there are usually CDBG funds one of us has acquired that we'd be happy to share.
Thank you.
Yeah, in our strategic plan, we plan on building 20 living units this year. 11 will be with the purchasing of the school, Grace Lutheran, and putting it for veterans. And then we have 6 that we're doing up in Menominee, 6 families, and then we chip over doing another one and possibly one in Eau Claire. But also in our strategic plan is to do 20 repairs. So 20 new and 20 repairs. So in those repairs, some of those, this is the first time I've seen this presentation from the Hmong Association. I'm looking at that going, yeah, we can help there. I don't know how much we can help. There's certain things we have capability of doing, certain things we can't. We can't do the concrete work, for example, on that apartment complex. But we certainly could get in there and do drywall repair, bathroom repairs, things like that. We started working with Home for Good on that same path because we have volunteers, and our volunteers are always looking to volunteer, and we're not always in Eau Claire. We're in Chippewa, we're in Chippewa Falls, we're in Menominee, we're in other places, and our volunteers want to work. They're kind of a group of people that get together. I call them a golf club because they like being with each other. So when they're not with each other, they get anxious. And so we can certainly put them to work in projects like this. So Habitat, Home for Good, City of Eau Claire, Hmong Association will have to work together because affordable housing is a crisis and it will never be fixed by the federal government. It's going to be fixed locally by these organizations working together. So we're excited to be part of that, and we'll reach out to the Hmong Association to figure out how we can help.
Thank you.
I would like to add, this is an exciting path to home ownership for families who would not otherwise have a path to home ownership. So within our program, we have 9 single-family homes. All of them are inhabited by families who were previously housing insecure and have been sustaining tenancies successfully long-term with supportive services in place. Some of them no longer need them. And we have several families that would be ready for that next step given the right opportunity. We're just very excited about the opportunity for the community and about this opportunity to develop land that is so well located. Some of the stats Billy asked us to correct, we did have a walkability score of 50 here. We're very close to public transit. We're walking distance to an elementary school and to a park. There is a grocery store going in soon. And the land actually is not forested where we'd be developing, so we wouldn't be removing any trees. There are just a lot of advantages to this location, and we'd like to not miss the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilmember Miller, do you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Council Vice President. Ms. Grace Hart, you said that your timeline here, there's a down payment due at the end of this month. Is that correct?
January 31st is when we need to put in an offer to purchase, yes.
Okay. And then how much is the down payment for the property, that value, roughly?
Off the top of my head. So this situation will help us calculate how much it'll cost our future homeowners on their mortgages. So if we can put down more on the property, then we can reduce the cost of the mortgage overall at the end. And so it really depends on how much we're awarded. We asked for $250,000, which came out to, I think, reducing the cost per lot by $20,000, making it a mortgage that we can afford as a land trust at about $100 a month, which is the usual ground lease fee, if that makes sense. So about $30,000 a lot.
So the
is the cost.
Pretty much the whole bulk of your request here is for the property itself.
It's for the property in order to make the mortgages affordable, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
And Councilmember Moga.
Yeah, thank you again, Vice Councilor Anderson. So I want to thank both the Hmong Mutual and the Good for Home for Good for what you do for the community. For me personally, maybe the City Council, really appreciate your service. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Councilmember Schoen?
Thank you, Vice President Anderson. I think that perhaps Councilmember Miller's question is maybe maybe you already answered this, but could you help me understand? So obviously, we've got limited funds, and the need from both applicants exceeds what the city has available. Could you talk about the impact if we were to reduce the funding? I know that the prior applicant, proposed 3 different budgets, the lowest of which would be $86,000. And currently, our resolution awards them $75,000. So if we were to adjust, the resolution slightly to accommodate even the lowest budget that the prior applicant recognized, so that would be a difference of, gosh, I got to do math on the fly, $11,000. Would that significantly change the project, or could you talk a little bit about how any minor reduction or reduction at all in the $200,000 currently in our resolution allocated to you would impact your overall project?
Do you want to break it down, or do you want me to?
Go right ahead.
Okay. So an $11,000 difference. I also would need a calculator to break it down. But since we're looking at 6 lots, it would be divided across those lots. The difference would be, right now, we're looking at already a $50,000 reduction in the budget that would really make this ideal as far as the sale price of the homes. Habitat's homes are usually sold at 150, 160, which helps keep it in that CMI of 50% or less. And so looking at 200,000, what pushes us a little bit higher and closer to the edge. So I'd have to sit down and calculate it exactly, but the difference makes a difference. At the same time, I acknowledge the need for funding by the other applicant.
Other questions? Oh, thank you. I never see you right there.
Thank you. I guess I had a question about, are there any images of and square footage information about the houses that you're planning to build or anything like that at this site?
Typically, they're 1,200 square feet, 3 bedrooms, 1 bath. The challenge we have is that as the inflation happens, the cost of the houses get more expensive. What people can afford gets to be less. And so there's a dilemma. So we either have to figure out ways to build the houses for less, or we have to figure out how to have the applicants take out bigger mortgages. The second one is harder to do. So we're looking at ways to build houses for less. So the house we did on Mercury, for example, we panelized that house, meaning that we had Wausau build the house for us in a factory. That worked out to be about the same cost, but the speed was much faster, the safety was much better. But we have to continue to look at ways to lower costs. We're talking to another city right now about how do we build a house for $100,000. Right now they're $150,000, and that's with a lot of donations from various organizations and from people. But we have to keep on driving that cost down because we can't ask people to pay more money for it. So that's our challenge. But to answer your question, right now we're building 3 bedroom, 1 bath, usually with a garage, usually a basement. But as time goes on, we're probably not going to do basements because it'll be cheaper to do a slab on grade. It's going to probably go down to a 1-car garage. It might be 2 bedrooms. It might be, we have to just look at unique ways of building things. There's another habitat in the country looking at printing houses. Actually bringing a printer out and just print the whole house on site. It's pretty clever. But that's expensive right now, but that'll come down in cost over time. So we got to continue to lower the cost. But when we don't have to pay for the land in a land trust, that lowers the cost for the home quite a bit. Usually we pay about $10,000 for a lot. That's on average what we pay. So now we don't have to pay that $10,000, so that could bring the house down to the $140,000, $150,000 range. So that's always looking for different ways to fund and lower costs.
And to answer the question on the design, they would be twin homes. So you'd have the garages next to each other and then the residential area on the outside with yard space. And they're each 3 bedrooms, 1 bath, and 0 entry, I believe. Fully accessible.
Okay. Yeah, all handicap accessible.
So just as a follow-up, are they 2-car garages for each of the units under your design proposal?
The ones we're building right now are 2 cars. And they're twin homes. So as she said, the garages are in the middle, and then the homes, it's really 0 lot lines under 1 roof is what a twin home is. So right now we're building 3 bedroom two-car garage on a slab. That's what we're doing in Menominee right now. Each time we start a new project, we have to look at the costs and figure out what we can do. So we might have to drive the cost down to one garage, or is no garage. It all depends on what the market's doing at the time we're building.
Sure. Thank you.
Sure.
And Councilmember Jones?
Yeah, thank you, Vice President. You both mentioned that you would be willing to partner up with the Hmong mutual organization to help facilitate their needs. All right. So I would like to hear from you all in terms of the direct, tangible, and expedited ways that you all could help that organization.
Gladly. So I reached out, and still the offer stands. I have a construction manager who currently is going to have an opening in her schedule because we've completed work on a lot of homes, and we have a gap until we're going to be able to pay for more renovations. And I would like to send her to the Hmong Mutual Assistance Association. We will pay her, and she will assist them with the repairs and organizing the work. She's agreed to do this, and so has my board.
And we have it on our agenda to do 20 repairs during the year. So we're looking for people to step up and fill out forms and tell us what they need the help on. We have a committee that goes through the work to look at what's happening. The person has to own the house. It's not a rental. And they're essential repairs. They're not remodeling repairs to improve the quality. It's more what's essential to get done. So that's on our agenda already. So I think the Hmong Association probably doesn't know about us. They
We
probably
want you to.
They do now.
Yep.
And if they can go onto our website and fill out the forms, we can start looking at their projects.
Any further questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry,
No,
Council.
Actually, I had a question for the representatives from ECMA, if they wanted to come back up.
yeah.
I'll let you guys go.
Lots of walking today.
That's fine. I need my steps anyways.
Thank you for coming back up here. Given the offer for assistance that was just offered here, I know I'm putting you on the spot. This is a very instant reply, but do you have any immediate thoughts? Is this something that you'd be amenable to that could work for you to help you get the repairs you need with the amount of money offered? I know you had that lowest budget offered, and that was still higher than was offered, but that lacked the project manager. But if you were able to get one provided to you at no cost, initial thoughts on how that might help you?
First of all, I just want to say thank you so much. I mean, that is just so kind. And I know that both of our projects are so important, and they're on like the both different ends. Like one's creating housing to buy, and the other one is like upkeeping our present ones that we have. The offer to have housing to come and help do all the projects, it's great. It really is. The person that we want is someone who is bilingual and bicultural, because as someone who has been hired in the past for the housing liaison, they just don't necessarily do the project, but they also speak Hmong as well, so that as people come into our office, they help fill out housing vouchers. They call landlords to make sure that landlords understand our religious practices too. So, I mean, I will take any help and support. I think that with their help for Home for Good support, it will take a good chunk of that if their staff is willing to help us out. And then we could probably up the other costs for the housing liaison that does the cultural aspect.
Yeah, we would take the offer for someone who can assist us in managing the projects. Again, I think the issue that we always run into is that most of our units are Hmong folks, and with the moving around, we would need someone that would create double work. So like I would then, have to translate for this project, this property person that's coming in, because they don't speak Hmong, and then it's just, so I think in a different aspect, maybe they could do something, maybe talk to the contractors, work with the contractors, but we would still have to work with our tenants who a majority of the time speaks Hmong and only Hmong. So the offer, we will gladly take the offer, but it will have to look a little different than how we would do it.
Okay, yeah, thank you for giving some immediate feedback here. I appreciate that.
Okay, and on a motion by Councilmember Mboga and Councilmember Miller, this item is moved. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Schoen.
I would like to propose an amendment to the resolution before us. And so the amendment would be a change in the dollar amounts to each of the applicants, amending the $200,000 to Home for Good to $189,000, and then amending the $75,000 awarded to the Hmong Mutual Assistance Association from $75,000 to $86,000.
So we have a motion from Councilmember Schoen and a second from Councilmember Mboga. Is there any discussion on this amendment? Yeah, I don't know if it can be. Yeah, could this be a friendly amendment, or do we need to vote on this?
Up to the mover and seconder, and then ultimately the chair to try to ascertain whether it is simply, a relatively minor change that the whole body is going to accept, or to just take a vote on it. Since it is fairly substantive, money is at issue, I would suggest just take the vote and be sure.
Thanks. All right, let's, if there's no discussion.
I have discussion.
I sorry, didn't see you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So I would, in full appreciation for the discussion and the proposals and everything that's been offered again today, I would just like to add something from the conversation at the Housing Opportunities Commission meeting about how that was divided, because there was enormous conversation about two very good, necessary projects. And the reason that it went the way it did with the amounts that were decided was the time limit and the sustainability of the Home for Good immediately. I mean, that can go and be sustained. And then the need for structure to support maintenance and that person to be employed. It was a different kind of project cost that wasn't in the ground type of things. And so that's how we made the decision, that it went $200,000 because of the affordability points, and then the fact that we really wanted to support the beginning of real intensive maintenance for the HMAA. Very affordable properties, but they don't have a program of continuing maintenance. So that was our thinking, and that was our thinking. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further discussion on this amendment? Councilmember Miller.
Thank you, Vice President Anderson. Going with what Councilmember Christopherson said, given the date of the end of the month for securing the down payment for the property was, unfortunately, we don't have any more meetings before that comes up. So given this fresh offer, if we had time, I would have suggested that the two organizations speak and come to some sort of agreement, then we come forward and maybe look at the amounts. But it seems like the whole affordability of the Home for Good is dependent upon getting the best down payment they can right now for something at the end of this month. So that's weighs heavily on deciding to shift some of that money around. The other proposal did not have the assistance. The lower cost one from the ECMA did not have, at that moment, the assistance now offered from Home for Good. So I don't wonder if it's not better to leave it as it is to allow the best financing for the property, and then also perhaps with the assistance, ECMA could get by with the original amount.
Thank you. Is there other discussion? Okay. Okay, seeing none, then if the clerk could please call the roll on this amendment to adjust the dollar amounts in the resolution.
Councilmember Schoen,
Aye.
Worthman,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Christofferson,
No.
Gregor,
No.
Johnson,
No.
Jones,
Aye.
Imboga,
Aye.
Miller.
No.
And let's see, it looks like I counted 5 yeses, so that that amendment passes. And thanks for helping me count right, everyone. All right, let's return to the main motion. So this resolution authorizing the affordable housing grants. Is there any further discussion? Councilmember Worthman.
Thank you, Council President. Just want to raise up the fact that our city council took votes last year to make sure that we continue this fund into future years in our capital improvement at the tune of $275,000, which, as we're kind of learning today, might not even be enough for how much need we really have in the community to do these kinds of projects, real on-the-ground projects, both renovations, new housing, land trust, which Council Vice President has talked about quite a lot. So I'm just thinking forward, and I'm thinking about this affordable housing fund. Finding a revenue source for it has been challenging and has meant we've had to cut other areas of our capital improvement in order to put money into this fund. But I can't help but think how important that is. And frankly, going forward with capital improvement, we might even want to think about how do we find a more steady funding stream to make it at $500,000 or $1 million as our housing needs assessment thought would be a potentially more impactful amount. So yearly, looking at how do we increase this fund, because frankly, I wish we could be giving the full amount of requests to both applicants, and I'm sure there was other applicants who even came to housing opportunities with their projects that didn't get money this year. So I think on top of that is just the recognition that this consistently comes up as the #1 issue from folks that I talk to and represent in my district as being the challenge that they want to see addressed in this community.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Oh, thanks. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Vice President Anderson. Yeah, I think one of the important things that the Affordable Housing Fund does for us as a community and as a council is just like see some of the need that's out there, like in terms of some of the raw numbers, in terms of some of the images, some of the the people that are impacted. So like, and then we're seeing nonprofits apply, and we have in past rounds too. And I think that's an important element, is that we're creating that engagement and that opportunity for nonprofits as opposed to just for-profit entities. And I'm encouraged to see like the ambition and the interest there. And then also seeing the collaboration that comes even from this process, even like during a meeting where it's like, hey, we can do this and and we can figure this out together. And with this reduction that has been approved, and one of the things that I always try to figure out is how we can reduce costs for housing, and looking at the transportation lens that is often applied to housing for people is often housing for automobiles is like somehow integral with it, and when it doesn't always have to be. So perhaps one way to make the Home for Good and Habitat collaboration work would be to reduce the garage space or even eliminate it. I don't know if that's really going to help that much in this case, because it's largely about buying the land, but it does take less land in some cases, to have less space for cars and garages and stuff. So some things to maybe look at creatively in that regard in the long run, and it sounds like that's already been happening. The forces that there are on the cost of housing. But But yeah, just when you look at Eau Claire, there's a lot of housing that doesn't have garage space, and you know, and that's not the end of the world. So just something to think about. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Christopherson.
Thank you, Vice President. I never would have expected myself to be saying these words in a public way, but I am very compassionate for the needs of individuals to live comfortably and safely. But I don't believe that it's the city's responsibility to come up with the money for that to happen. Our community has to buy into this at a deeper level. And one response that has come out of the Housing Opportunities Commission is there is an independent effort for a foundation that might create significant money. And and that's where I would like to see our emphasis and our attention of empowering and connecting people with the wherewithal to support this important need in our community so that it becomes viable and sustainable, because city budgets they're never in the same place every year. And it causes citizens then to have a different relationship with government, because we become the go-to for everything. And I don't think that's the role that city government is intended to play. So wonderful that we have these applicants, wonderful that we have this desire to create and support and sustain our community. But our work is to take this need into the community and point to people that can really contribute in an important way through a gift or through a legacy or something like that, because the city is trying to pay staff, and we're trying to expand our parklands, and we're trying to be representatives of a really healthy community. So I love what I'm hearing, but I don't want to see that city government is the place where the money has to come from. I'm hearing great conversations in other avenues, and I would encourage people to listen to the Housing Opportunity Commission meetings, because there is really a lot of great ideas. The things that you're hearing from Habitat for Humanity, Home for Good, those are ways that we change people's lives and give really meaningful housing. But I do get anxious and agitated and start talking too fast when I think about who's responsible for coming up with that money. So thank you for all of the work and for this vote, but I hope the conversation continues.
Thank you. And Councilmember Jones.
Yeah, thank you, Vice President Anderson. Just a quick question to fellow council member Christopherson. I like that idea, and I'm just trying to think about, and maybe Ms. Hufford, you as well, in how I position this question. How might that be actualized? So if we look at private industry or whomever this entity may be that help us set up this type of funding source, right, beyond the demarcations of city council or city, how might that look? I mean, I don't know a lot about how those types of things work. And so maybe even like Ms. Hufford, like this may be a good point of departure to us to really dig deep into what you're suggesting, because there are limitations and constraints to what we can do, right? So I would really like us to really explore that. I think it's a phenomenal idea. And so how do we activate people throughout the community, private interests and beyond, right, to pool, to allocate resources, right, into something like this that we can help the community, right, pursue. So I don't know. I'm just kind of thinking out loud here, but I like the idea.
I think we're moving beyond the conversation on this vote, but I have already made my statements. Ms. Hufford, I'm sure, would respond, but maybe a work session or information about what's coming out of the HOC would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, please. Did you have anything? Okay, great. All right. Seeing no additional discussion, will the city clerk please call the roll on agenda item number 19?
Councilmember Worthman.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Christofferson.
Aye.
Gregor.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Imboga.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Schoen.
Aye.
And this item passes unanimously. We're moving on to agenda item number 20, a resolution approving the Corba Trails Plan for the City Wells site. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Plaza? Okay, seeing none, then I'm sorry, I didn't look over there. Please go ahead.
Sure. Thank you, Council Vice President. So I had just a couple of questions following yesterday evening's public hearing. And I think it would be of relevance to the council and perhaps those in council chambers tonight that are here for this agenda item. I was wondering, something that we didn't hear about last night is the user agreement that exists between the city and Corba, and perhaps this is also something that our city attorney could respond to. But could you talk just a little bit about that user agreement and sort of how it defines the process between the city and Corba in relation to trail development and any potential trail-related concerns or conflict that might occur?
Okay, yes, I can. Good evening, Vice President Anderson and council members. We have multiple user agreements with multiple entities out there, baseball, hockey, outdoor more, and Corba is one of those user agreements. In that user agreement, there is a clause that they have to provide a liaison to the city. Right now, that is John, and he talks with me, and then we come up with a work plan that's agreeable to both entities, and then they go ahead with the work plan. If we want to go further, we can bring once a year, we could go with our Waterways and Parks Commission to have the work plan for the well site on there, like at the December meeting, so everybody knows what's being planned for 2024 or 2025. But that is currently in our agreement right now.
Can I have a follow-up? Of course, thank you. And then perhaps you answered maybe some of this already, but could you share what you see the city's role in the project moving forward, just in terms of how things progress, and if we receive feedback from the community members about this project, or if Corba experiences any challenges, like what is the city's role just moving forward as this project would potentially be implemented if we approve the resolution tonight?
Well, this is city land, and we have the final say. The city has final say. Corba is a great partner with us, and they help maintain those trails. And I'm just going to give Northwest Park example. There is constant communication about trails washing out, trees going down. We had an incident when one biker went off the trail and went into a private property. We tracked that down relatively easy and got a hold of that biker. So there's communication there. If things need to change, or if the plan needs to change, or if there's a drastic change in the neighborhood, things can change. This is conceptual plan. It's a planning document. It's not in concrete, but the city has the final say on what is put out there.
Thank you.
And Councilmember Imboga.
Thank you, Vice President Anderson and Mr. Plaza. I have two questions. One is about signage. Are the signs going to be directional? Like, for example, they will be restrictive, like no dogs this side, no walkers this way, or what?
Well, there's not going to be any restrictive sign. The signs are meant to a welcome kiosk, welcoming them, things along that line. There's not going to be a restrictive sign. There are trails that are mainly designed for bikers opposed to walkers or runners. And I have I pulled out some of those, let's see, how do you advance that? For our existing maps last night, and I'll just go through these quick. This is the existing conditions that were out there right now. This was the draft concept, and it's, for some people, this looks like a plate of spaghetti with all sorts of noodles running out. So we had our consultant pull out the trails that are mainly designed for the bike use. That doesn't mean other people can't use them. It's just designed for bike use. Walkers or dogs, walkers can use on them. So social use, that's just walking social. The hiking, running trails, those would be mainly those trails. And then our winter use trails. So they're gonna be for directional signs, welcoming signs, because when people get there, if you don't know the well site is there, you feel like you're bootlegging into some private property. Welcome to the well site, and have an overall map, trail signs, things along that line. Now, I'm gonna say in the spring or when the trails are wet, if there's an incline, we'll ask people to stay off the trails till they dry off, but we do that with all of our trails. And we ask just for trail maintenance purposes. And the more we maintain the trails, the less erosion there will be throughout the years.
I have another one. Another one is now about the trees. So if the copra, how do you say Corba, I'm sorry. If Corba is going to make a new trail, I bet they're going to be cutting some trees. Do you know how many trees are going to be cut?
John, up there, I know our forestry went out there. There was a few years ago, there was oak blight out there, and we went out there and removed a lot of oak trees. Any new trails?
Yeah, so at this point, because of the concept, we haven't done field work at all. It's impossible to say. From a trail advocacy standpoint, and just the amount of work that goes into taking trees down, we always try and design around trees and implement them actually as kind of anchor points to keep trails where they need to be. You know, again, the last thing we're wanting to do is to make it look like we've done anything more than put a small trail in. And so, if you go like Lowe's Creek, Northwest Park, those areas, we do our best to make it more look like a meandering trail that's not a big clear cut or anything like that. Traditionally, we need permission for anything over 3 inches in diameter to take out. So that would get approval from the city on any of those trees that would be taken out. But the plan, I can't say at this time.
What I can say is any significant trees, we would not remove. The buckthorn out there would probably move, we could move, much like we did with the trail behind the YMCA Center. So any significant trees or trees of value, our forester will go out there. We would advise them to go around that tree. We would not advocate to take down those trees.
And Councilmember Johnson?
Thank you, Vice President. Just, I believe it was mentioned briefly last night, but say if this were to be approved, at what point, what's the timeline look like? At what point would people start seeing, trails in use? A year from now, 2 years from now, is there going to be a change overnight this summer?
As it was stated last night, this is a volunteer group. I think this summer they were planning just to look at the trails, look at signage of the trails, possibly get funding to sign the trails this year, and in 2025, probably some trail development, if I'm speaking out of turn, John. And that's when, in December of this year, we would say, what's your trail plan? They would know what they have to work with and what volunteers and timing to do some trails. Now, all of these trails aren't going to be done in a weekend. It's a volunteer group. This is a long process to get the trails where they're supposed to be. I would suspect a lot of these trails probably would be improved and people wouldn't even notice it.
Councilmember Worthman.
Thank you, Council President. I guess this is a question for John, but in terms of, does Corba do invasive species removal? I go to Centennial Park often, and there was a invasive species removal that happened there beyond the trails, and actually some things got taken out that shouldn't have been. You might know about this. But does Corba, I assume, doesn't do any of that? It's mostly just on the trails itself in terms of what management you do?
Yeah, so Corba isn't responsible for that. We have some members who work for the county who are experts in that field. I'm surprised that Centennial had that done because one of the liaisons there is the county member who is an expert in invasive species. So that surprises me that that happened. I'm not saying that was his group or our group that did that, but traditionally, no, we don't. There's a group of 2 individuals that do a lot of that maintenance at parks.
Northwest.
At Northwest. They are specialized in that, and we do pass on their efforts, so we do try and help do that, but Corp is not responsible for any of that.
Thank you.
And they do a fantastic, it's a husband-wife team. They've been out there for years, and they've made a significant improvement out there. At Northwest Park, correct.
Councilor Brecker.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, just wanted to, one of the things that, we've heard from a lot of people that have been using the trails for 30 or 40 years. We have staff that have been working for the city in that area for a very long time too. So like, to either of your knowledge, are you aware of any like maps that have ever been created of the Wells site to help people use it recreationally? And then are you aware of any signage that has ever been placed over the years that by the city or to actually like help with access and wayfinding?
I'm not aware of any of the signings. We do have a map on our city's website regarding our winter trails, the Nordic ski trails and the snowshoe trails out there. But there is no signing, there is no welcoming. You go out there and you just sort of figure it out yourselves, basically.
And Councilmember Jones.
Thank you, Vice President Anderson. So whenever I'm conducting research and trying to move it towards publication, I have to always look at the limitations of my study. I have to think long and hard about the implications of the limitations. So I kind of posed this question last night, and I'm going to pose it again. Given all of the accounting that's been provided on this by the residents, do you all perceive any limitations to this proposal?
Well, what I can say is, with or without this plan going forward, people are going to use the well site for the trails. This document or a plans document will give us a blueprint of how to control the growth. If we don't have a plan to follow, then people, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the line, they go, ooh, I want to get closer to this part of the well site. I want to get closer to that part of the well site. Maybe go into some, I believe a lady spoke last night about some plants that were very specific to that area. Right now, there's nothing to stop anybody to put a trail right through that plant. Right now, there's nothing to stop anybody to bushwhack a trail closer to people's property. This document right here gives us a plan to follow. So when we do see that, we have a means to say, well, stop, you can't do that. Hopefully, they'll be respectful and we'll explain why. But if not, we have some teeth behind what we're going to say and pursue it that way. So the limitation is if we don't do anything, maybe it's going good for the last 40 years. I can't guarantee it's going to go good for the next 40 years because people are going to do what they're going to want. And I know the person last night spoke about going off the trail and she liked to get back to nature. I know when I was in Yellowstone last year, there were signs, stay on the trail to protect the nature. There's a reason why there's trails there. There's a reason why there's signs there. Everybody wants to enjoy nature. It's a parks thing, but they want to get close. Sometimes they get too close and they damage what they want to see. When I lived in Arizona, we had the Colossal Cave and the people ruined it. So we want people to enjoy it. We want people to be a part of it, but not so close. You're welcome.
And Councilmember Miller?
Thank you, Vice President Anderson. Mr. Plaza, following with that, has there been any cases of people wrecking this wildlife area? It's been existing for 40 years, and talking about bushwhacking and ruining nature, but it seems to be pretty pristine. Is that a concern?
Well, like I say, for the last 40 years, it's been going fine.
Then why are we concerned about it changing in the immediate future?
I can't guarantee in the next 40 years, what's to stop somebody to go closer to somebody's backyard or to have somebody go through a natural area?
If I'm sorry.
Oh, no, they just can, it's what they want to do, I guess.
Sure. And then if these plans were approved, what would stop someone from doing that anyway? How would that limit that from happening?
It would give us a planning document, so when we see it happening, we could have a means to say you can't do it because of these plans. Hopefully, they would be respectful and follow the plans. But it's a public park. How can you stop somebody to vandalize a public park? In any of our parks, you rely on the good nature of people. And I think for the most part, people will respect what's out there. There are going to be a few, and this plan's not going to guarantee that's not going to happen in this park or any of our parks throughout the city. It's just a planning document we can use. It's a tool.
Can I elaborate a little bit on that? Sure. We talk a lot about the history of the trails that have been down in the wells, and there's no doubt that there's been a lot of use down there over the years. My bigger concern and the reason that I really propose this project isn't for the trails that have been down there forever that are well established. It's really been the things that have popped up really since 2020. There's been a lot of the wildlife trails that have transformed themselves into walking trails, and then people down there doing their own kind of trail building and things like that have really raised concern for me, just as far as if that type of behavior continues. Again, it's the last 4 years, they've probably added 4 or 5 miles of trail down there that were not there before, right? And so for me, it's not about, it's that it's been going so well for 40 years, why change it? It's, well, in the last 4 years, there's been a lot of change down there. And to Steve's point, if people continue to be that active down there, what will that look like in the future? And so that's my concern. And then, people also talk about, nature, keeping it natural and things like that. Well, a lot of the work they have done is the work that we're looking to do, but they didn't do it in an organized or authorized fashion. And they didn't have experience doing it. And so we would like to make sure that what we're doing is creating similar type trails, but it's done in a professional manner and a sustainable manner. If that makes sense.
Thank you.
Councilmember Moga.
Yeah, I have two questions. One is, what would be the long-term environmental impact because of using bikes? Every time you're using the bikes, is there environmental impact in the long term?
The environmental impacts of using bikes on the trails?
Yeah.
Well, they're currently being used right now, and we want to keep the bikes on the trail to keep the specific area used so people don't go off the trails to ruin the environment. Same way with walking, running, repetitive activity on one piece of square foot of grass or piece of field, it's going to have an impact on that if it's a running shoe, a walking shoe, a bike. Now, a tire will do it more quickly, but there's still an impact whenever we go off or on the trail.
So another question I will ask. So I think almost every council will say almost majority of the airport neighbors or the worst neighbors, they are against it. Why do you think they are against it? Majority of them, all the neighbors.
The neighbors.
Majority of them, they are against it. Why do you think they are against it?
I can't speak for the neighbors. I'm sure for the amount of neighbors out there, each one has a reason why they're not against it, so I'm not sure. I mean, we heard last night a lot of their reasons, so I would say what they said last night.
And Ms. Schoen?
Thank you, Council Vice President. I just had one quick question about the maps that you had up tonight, and this is the first time I'm seeing some of these maps. I think maybe they were sent via email earlier today, but I didn't have a chance to look at them very closely. My question, and I kind of want some clarification. So the trails, you had a slide that shows the trails that are kind of designed with biking in mind, and some trails that are designed with walking in mind. I just want to make sure that I'm understanding correctly. Is this to sort of help us understand at council that the proposed concept design that is associated with the resolution here tonight, those trails weren't designed solely with biking in mind? Are you showing that some of these trails were designed with biking in mind, some of them were designed with walkers in mind? Is that sort of
Correct.
what I should be understanding? Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
It's not one activity. It's a multitude of activities we're trying to cover.
And yeah, sorry for the late delivery on this. It's tough as someone who is used to reading maps like this or doing that. Someone can look at that and say, yeah, it makes sense to me. It makes sense. It's why should I have to do anything more? And so seeing that a lot of people were struggling to understand that these weren't just bike trails, right? We heard a lot of that. There's bikes. These are for bikes. These are for bikes, right? I feel like that plan, that illustration wasn't doing its job. And so, again, we quickly kind of responded to that after getting that feedback and came up with this in an effort to try and help clarify that for people. And kind of going back to the limitations, I think, a lot of people have asked in the past to have separate use trails, right? And we talked about some signage and stuff. And in the past, like I said, all of our trail managers have said, all these trails need to be open for everyone, right? And so we don't really have a lot of experience saying that walkers can only use this trail, hikers are only supposed to use this trail or whatever. So I do see that as, it all depends on the user, if they're willing to follow that. How many people follow signs as it is on the road that have been driving for 30 or 40 years and things like that. But yeah, no, so this is basically us trying to do a better job of communicating that with the public. Could we have done it 6 months ago? Sure, but that request, kind of wasn't there. So this wasn't meant as a last attempt to sway opinion. It's just trying to clarify that it's not just for biking stuff, that we could say that this orange trail is for a bike related, you can use it all, and then start to go down and drill down into those different areas.
Are there any further questions? Oh.
Actually, thank you. I had a question about double track versus single track trails. Like, is double track mean that there's, it's a two-way trail, or
So double track would be, sorry.
How does that work?
Double track is traditionally what is thought of as a wide enough trail you could fit a car down. We'll just say that, right? And double track usually comes from fire lanes, like fire roads, where there's just two sets of tire tracks. It's not meant as a two-way, whatever. It's just wide enough to do that. Like traditionally, ski trails, like groomed ski trails, are considered double track, just because traditionally, when they were formed, it was done by logging trucks or cars or whatever and made two tracks. And so single track would be considered just one single track. A lot of times you'd be in a single file line going down that.
I may have a follow-up to that. Is they're all two-way trails, though, in terms of none of these are meant to be one-way.
No,
okay.
We found that to be just, we haven't done it before, and these types of trails really don't warrant it. A lot of times where you'd see single, directional trails is when they're a downhill-oriented type deal, and we're not planning to do any of that stuff.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Seeing no further questions, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We can have this item is moved by Councilmember Johnson and Councilmember Jones. Any discussion?
Thank you, Council Vice President. So I just wanted to share that I have been involved with a lot of different stakeholders that are interested or otherwise invested in this project. Especially in the last several weeks, my involvement has increased pretty substantially. This is in District 1. And so I just wanted to share a few things that I think are really important to think about. From a really big picture perspective, I think about outdoor spaces and green spaces in our community. These are public spaces that should be open and accessible to everyone. In the bigger picture of inclusivity and making sure that people feel welcome in these spaces, I think that I see a lot of value in the plan that is being proposed to us tonight. I did some research over the last couple of days looking at some best practices and research from groups like the National Recreation and Park Association, NRPA. And they have some key findings from a recent article about some of the surveys that they've done and research they've done in this area. And I just want to share a couple of the takeaways that I think are really impactful to me personally when I think about our community and green spaces. So I'll just share a few of them, but one key finding is that communities of color still feel cautious about safety of outdoor spaces. Another key finding is that women have growing concerns regarding safety and continue to be underrepresented in outdoor spaces. And then the last key finding I wanted to just highlight tonight is that LGBTQ plus people are often left out despite a desire to participate. So I think about the Wells property. This is a property that I utilize myself. And I can appreciate some of the concerns I've heard from community members about signage and feeling unsafe in this area, or otherwise unwelcome or uncertain that this is a space that they should be recreating on. I don't know how many other council members, I know Councilmember Mboga, you mentioned that you're familiar with this property.
Very well.
But there's no signage. The first time that I went to the Wells property myself, I questioned, can I be here? Is this a safe space for me to be? Am I trespassing on property? The city well houses are there. So it does feel a little unclear. So I just want to highlight that I think that some of the signage and the importance of improved safety considerations are really significant for me in thinking about the big picture of the community here, and recognize that I think the majority of users, as we've heard recently, of the Wells property are likely adjacent property owners. And I think that it's phenomenal that this neighborhood has this amazing resource here that they appreciate and love so much. But I think that there's probably a larger community out there in Eau Claire and beyond that would appreciate this property, but currently doesn't feel safe or isn't very clear that this is a space that they can go recreate. So I just wanted to share those big picture thoughts. I do think that with recognition that the majority of users are likely the adjacent property owners and they have such a vested interest, they've been very vocal with council about their concerns here, that we definitely need to recognize that they should be a stakeholder that should be included in this project as the project progresses. I want to propose, I guess, some directives to staff. It's not something I'm sure that requires an amendment to the resolution necessarily. We heard from city staff just moments ago that they were willing to consider holding this as a standing agenda item on the December Waterway and Parks Commission meeting annually as the work plan for this project progresses. And I think that would be a phenomenal place for the different stakeholder groups to come together and hear updates and share feedback. And so I guess I just want to share that I think this is a project that I would be supportive of, and that, with the acknowledgement that there should be some direction given to staff regarding how that the Friends of the Well group and other neighborhood and stakeholders are invested and included moving forward in the process. This is very long-winded, I'm sorry.
Oh, thank you so much. I think the next slide I saw was Councilmember Christopherson's.
Thank you, Council Vice President. I'm simply going to amplify what Councilmember Sean has mentioned. I don't have any difficulty with this item in front of us. I think everybody is interested in the trails. I think everybody is interested in them being maintained in a better and accessible way. But I think that the individuals who live in that area and feel connected to that area do want to be included, and their inclusion or lack of inclusion is the resistance. It's not that they disagree, but they may be able to fine-tune. I thought that, is it John? I'm just going to go with John. Yeah. Mr. John.
Yeah.
also had some new awareness as a result of those conversations, like the maps are different today. So it's that quality of face-to-face conversation that's going to bring this in as a really appreciated and loved project.
Sure.
But that leaves that open-ended, which I think is really important. The other piece I would like to just say from my own personal experiences, on the Upper West Side, the Half Moon Trail goes right through the neighborhood. It doesn't parallel that High Bridge Trail, but it meets the High Bridge Trail at Folsom Street. So you've got also a group that has lived there. They've been raised there. They go into the woods. They hike these trails, and they love them. And that was the first project that came to me when I was elected in 2018. And it's not in the ground yet, but that's got nothing to do with this. It's the fact that being new to that neighborhood, I wouldn't walk down that trail if you paid me. It looks scary as heck. It's dark. You don't know who you're going to meet. You don't know if you're really on the trail or in somebody's backyard. So there is a safety issue, and there is a wayfinding issue that I think will make it not necessarily overrun, but safer and clearer for people to use. So I'm supportive of this project, and I think it needs continued conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Mboga?
Yeah, I really appreciate my councilman. Oh, thank you, Vice President, City Council Anderson. Thank you for the conversation. For me, I would say thank you. You said Corba, yeah. Thank you for the good work you do in the community. But I feel like this project, there was a missing piece, which was the community, the people live around. If you could have involved them, I could have supported it today. But because they are still concerned, because it's their baby, they have lived here, some of them, they say they have lived here for 70 years, 40 years. So if you go back and you bring these things, you bring them together, I will support it. But the way it is, for me, I won't support it. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilmember Miller?
Oh, I have to pass.
Oh, sorry. Let's see, I think the next I saw was Councilmember Worthman.
Thank you, Council President. I'm going to agree with Councilmember Mboga that I think there was a missing piece here in terms of the neighborhood being brought into the process and showing up in support last night, overwhelmingly supporting this awesome work that Corba does. Why couldn't we have had that? And so I think that can still happen. In fact, I would like to see this map worked on a little more with the neighbors and brought back to us. I support Corba doing this work and moving forward. In full disclosure, I am not as familiar with the Wells, but I go to another park that Corba is very, very involved with at Centennial Park, managing trails there. They do an awesome job. I have only good things to say. If a tree comes down, they're there within days to pull it out, get it out. If there needs to be weed whacking to bring the trails back, they come and do all that work. It's incredible. But I understand why people in the neighborhood feel so passionately about a piece of land that they walk day in and day out, trees that they love, plants that they see, animals and wildlife that they love to watch. And the idea of coming in and creating different trails, for the most part, we're looking at different trails, that does mean clearing of trees, even if it's small. It means rerouting where people have walked. There is, I think, a sense of connection that is going to be disrupted through that process. So you have to get the folks who live there involved and on board. And Councilmember Schwan, I appreciate all the work that you've put into this, and we had a chance to discuss this earlier today a little bit. But this idea of a neighborhood park or neighborhood green space versus a community-wide green space versus a regional green space, right? we're thinking about changing it from what is kind of a neighborhood green space right now to really a regional green space where people could be coming in from Chippewa Falls, Menominee, et cetera, to bike or utilize these trails. If that change is going to happen, it's going to make it different, and different enough that I would want to make sure neighbors are on board with that change. It's not good or bad that it's a neighborhood park right now and not a regional park, but if we're going to make it a regional park, it needs to be done with that missing piece, which is really the neighborhood involvement. So I want to say yes to Corba, and I want to say yes to this project, but I'd love to see another iteration of this with a map brought back to us that we could approve.
Thank you. Next I saw Councilmember Jones.
Yeah, thank you. Very valid points made by Councilmember Boga and Wortman. I agree with some of the concerns that you all highlight. I would also say that, and I'm going to call you Mr. John, that the revisions that you made to this map did it for me conceptually. Last night, it just made no sense to me whatsoever, and I could not make, like I say, any apprehension of it. I think now I see the grandiose vision of this, and I also see how it becomes much more transactional in its use and purpose and mission and vision. I can get on board with this, but I also think that one of the things that I suggest is for people who visit this location, that you be very precise in terms of how you perhaps maybe appropriate the signage that delineates the different and multi-use nature of this. I think it would be very, very important for people to understand there's a distinction here. And I appreciate it. So thank you.
I think Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Vice President Anderson. I don't have a whole lot much to add because it was all said so well by others. I am in support of this plan, and I personally don't view this as taking a neighborhood, personal park and trying to turn it into a grand regional park. The reason I'm in support of this is because I really view it as making it accessible for anyone who, should they want to come and enjoy this area. Right now, I think it can be easy for those who are used to it right now to say, well, I know it like the back of my hand, but I think that for others, that's not necessarily the case, and I really think we're actually preserving its kind of beauty by being strategic about how we shape it and how we shape these trails and the signage. And I do think it actually will elongate how this can last as a park and how the city can continue to enjoy it. I do understand, I fully understand the sentiments from the neighbors, and like others, I'll echo it. I really hope that they are continue to be involved in this process as we continue on, because as has been mentioned, this is not going to just take place overnight. This will have steps as we move forward, but I really do think that overall this is going to have a positive impact on the area and is really something that we should be excited about as a community.
Thank you. Councilmember Miller.
Thank you, Council Vice President Anderson. I'm kind of split on this one here. I appreciate Corba and all the 10 trails they've done in the Chippewa Valley and great area at large and the great work they do. I guess I feel a little wistful for this piece of rustic land. Kind of not mentioned. I mean, there are things to be said for development, and there's also things to be said for ruggedness. During the discussion last night, I think it was said that the Wells follows nature's path, and there's nothing but glorified deer trails. And it was said in a way to say that it was undesirable and that improvements should be made. And I think in the world there's places for improvements, but there's also something to be said to leave things rustic and undeveloped, and a place where the pace is slow and you take one step at a time. So the wistfulness for this rugged land, well, okay, that's a little overboard, but the undeveloped land, and also the lack of buy-in from the community now. There seems to be still a fundamental disagreement between the active users and Corba, and not to say that they couldn't be brought on board with, Councilmember Jones said that he now understands this a lot better with these new maps. The neighbor speaking did not have that advantage as of last night. So, and the problem is once this gets developed, it's kind of gone. You can't go back to it. Northwest Park is just 4 miles away, and I asked, why do you want to do this here when you have that there? And they said that the wells would offer a different experience, which is true. But the wells are also currently offers a different experience as well. And once this gets developed, that'd be gone. So I'm a little hesitant to go forward with this without the improved communication with the neighbors and the buy-in. So kind of split on this. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Is there any other comments? Oh, yeah, I didn't see you. Thank you.
I want to clarify or ask a question of our city attorney. So some of the directives, it sounds like amongst council, there's very much an interest or a desire to have staff ensure that the adjacent community members and the Friends of the Wells group is included as work plans are developed and perhaps discussed at future Waterways and Parks Commission meetings. Is this something that would need to be reflected in a resolution here tonight, or is that something that could be done outside of an amendment? Is that something that council can direct staff to do just outside of the resolution?
Please go ahead.
Thank you for the question, and try to answer it in a couple ways. One, to answer it directly first, I think it can be done through a direction, and I think we've had that, and I think you heard Mr. Plaza acknowledge it from the podium in terms of that being one of the ways to keep that ongoing discussion going that's called out in the agreement. And that's the other thing I would remind council as I listen to your policy discussion, and don't try to presuppose what you're talking about, but just a reminder, and it's in the cover sheet, that we already have an agreement with Corba that already makes the decision that trails are going to be installed, signs are going to be put up, that the nature of the development of this space will change. What is in front of you is whether it's a checkpoint with you on the concept of these maps, these particular trails, to give you that sort of input. Frankly, the decision has already been made that we have an arrangement with Corba for this space to improve it, to install signage, to make trails that only involve pruning, and the agreement already says that doesn't include chainsaws, but hand pruning, things like that. That already is signed in an agreement that we only have the ability to back out of under certain limited situations if, frankly, it's unsafe. So that weighing of policy was made. It was made last year. What's in front of you is whether the trail layout that's been worked on since is something that you think makes sense. And part of that original agreement, to kind of go back again to your question, includes public involvement and input and an ongoing liaison relationship with Corba, and all that's well documented in that agreement and will continue so long as the agreement is in place.
Thank you. Councilmember Worthman.
Thank you, Council President. I think given that, what I heard last night, some of the main concerns were trail placement issues, the number and type of trails and uses, which I think are things that, one of the hardest things with this is that what I sometimes see, and I think happened here, is neighbors want to get involved early. There's nothing to react to. And then when there's a full plan, it's like, well, now it's too late to actually make modifications. And somewhere in between, there was a chance for some of these very real questions about placement, types of trails, how much is it going to be half and half for bicycles versus walkers, all those kind of things. That was just sort of skipped over in some sense. So I would like to see this map come back to us. I think in maybe a 3-month time frame. I don't know where council is at on this, but that hopefully offers a chance for the neighborhood to be more involved in the process of this and show up and say, yeah, we give a thumbs up to this. This is good work by Corba. So I'll make a motion to postpone this item to our council meeting in April, the late April council meeting, 22nd, 23rd. Or sorry, 15, 16 maybe?
I would just make a point of order while Councilmember Worthman's working on this. I noted that other council members had their lights on during that, and if there's a motion to postpone while debate is still carrying on, it would require a cloture type motion to terminate debate, which usually you don't want to do. It's the supermajority vote. I have to quick look it up again, but I think it's 2/3. So usually what you want to do is make sure everyone has a chance to speak before a motion to postpone is in order.
I'll withdraw my motion for now.
Thank you. Councilmember Gregor.
Thank you, Vice President Anderson, and thank you, Mr. Nick.
Always want to make sure Councilmember Gregor has every opportunity to speak. He's usually shy.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of listening to do with this one, so that's why I was kind of holding back for a bit. But yeah, I think that there's been some frustrating aspects of this for a lot of folks, I think, whether that be neighbors or Corba itself, or for the city council to try to navigate this, probably for staff as well. I mean, we did not have any maps in the packet for the city council meeting, and this is a community-wide decision where it's not just immediate neighbors or not just Corba that are trying to hash this out or should be trying to hash this out. It's really, I think the intent behind us having this agreement with Corba to begin with was to have this be a more community-wide location that is, improves the accessibility, improves the communication about how to use the location and what is appropriate and what is not on different types of trails. I'm not really a mountain biker, but when I had to make my own trails, and this was in Minnesota back in the 1990s, and because there weren't like these official places, there weren't organizations like Corba in existence really anywhere in the country, and it's really an amazing thing that has come together. It's like there's people who have professional jobs to do designs like this, and there's people that can get certified as volunteers to make really good trails, and I think we're incredibly lucky to have Corba initiating that in so many different parts of our community, inside and outside of Eau Claire. And in terms of the accessibility, like there's been a lot of discussion about, this is so close to other trails or other parks, and like this really is not that close if you look at all the geographic barriers, especially especially people don't have a car, for example, and we do hope that a lot of people will bike and walk to these kind of locations as opposed to drive. So we do need to have spaces like this basically in every neighborhood, and this neighborhood and the multiple neighborhoods are somewhat new to maybe feeling as part of like a city as opposed to maybe like a little enclave hidden away on the river, which is super cool. And but when we did the Riverview Drive project, it was like, whoa, we're part of a city. And we have like a lot of other things to sometimes be worried about or sometimes see as opportunities. So I'm trying to be careful, I guess, in terms of how we do this. And the only times I've actually been out there are really for events where there's like, hey, there's a cross-country race here, and like this is where you go to access that. But it has never really felt like, as someone who lives like miles away from it, that I am really going to be able to know how much time it's going to take for me to get in and out of there and like fit it into my life. And I am a relatively adventurous person, I guess. I like to think, at least. But like it's one of the few places I've kind of like, oh, well, looks like that's where the city does their waterworks, and I should probably, there's like this big fence around parts of it, and there's, so there's, so I think there's a lot of benefit actually in opening this up more to an understanding that a lot of people like should be able to be there and find their way out again in a reasonable amount of time. In terms of, I just have one thought about the idea of a friends group too. I think that's amazing that that's coming together. And I live almost surrounded by Putnam Park, and there's a Friends of Putnam Park group that started even independently from the Putnam Park Commission, because like there's energy around like particularly access was the interest of the Putnam Park Commission, where it's just like, how do we allow more people to enjoy this, and how do we do that in a responsible way? And like with Putnam Park, that's been there for over 100 years, it's like, it's still a challenge, and it's an ongoing project. And I see this being an ongoing project, and the way we can set the tone for it that would allow everybody to feel included, whether you live in the neighborhood or you live on the south side of Eau Claire, like, that's what I'm looking for. So let's figure out how to get there, I guess. So that's my general comments. Thank you.
And let's see. Did I see Councilmember Miller's hand on the button?
Thank you, Council Vice President. Recommendation perhaps to Councilmember Worthman that the dates you proposed will be with the new council. If you would do it early in the month, we will have all members. There'll be fewer people unfamiliar with the process if you do it on the 8th and 9th of April. Just a suggestion.
Thank you, Councilmember Miller. I guess given that, I would make a motion to postpone this item until April 8th and 9th meetings.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second for, the motion is to postpone this until our April 8th and 9th meetings. Is there discussion about this motion? Oh, Councilmember Miller?
Thank you, Council Vice President. Yeah, I suppose just with over 175 residents speaking against it, there's just not enough of the community buy-in that I would want to see in order to go ahead with this project. And as we saw, enhancements to the maps and the presentation material were being made to us just as of this meeting, and in our council packets, we didn't even have maps. So I know Corba is a volunteer organization, and they're doing this volunteer time, but so I'd like to give them a little bit more time to try to get this package more polished, and also would suggest, I'm not going to add this part, but would suggest that between now and then they have at least one more community meeting in the neighborhood to then try to show people in the neighborhood how their walking paths will still be maintained and how they can still enjoy the place they know now while also accommodating other features as well.
Thank you. Other comments? Other discussion on this motion? Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Council Vice President. I guess I have a question perhaps for the movers of this amendment. I hear some interest in terms of what expected next steps might be for Corba and the city. But I want to check in, like, I think Councilmember Worthman, you initially stated that you wanted to see a new map or a different map. Are we able, can I ask Corba if that's something that is feasible for them? I know that they're working with another organization to produce these maps. I don't know if that's a reasonable timeline. Just, are we able to check in to understand what the impact and expectation of that would?
Yeah, would you be able to come up?
If it's appropriate, I kind of want to just circle back to the public engagement thing. Maybe it wasn't covered well enough. This has been published on Leader Telegram, WEAU, city website. There's been 2 public engagements at the neighborhood association meetings. There's been a library meeting. And so it doesn't upset me. It just concerns me a bit that people people think they weren't notified about this when we, in partnership with that neighborhood association, went out of our way to notify people. And I think people are so used to being notified via mail, maybe if something, other things are happening or whatever, that it seems to me like that's just, I mean, I'm not saying that we did or didn't do our best job, but I feel like we did well above and beyond what is asked of us. With that being said, yes, additional revisions to the map would cost money. I don't know what that money is right now. And additional time. If I'm given enough time, I should have time in my schedule to fit. I have family and dogs and a busy schedule, whatever else. So that's something we probably can commit our time to. And it's just going to be one of those where I think we definitely can make something work. I'm just nervous to say that we can change too much, just because I don't know what that change is. But yes, I think that we can commit that time to it.
Councilmember Jones,
Thank you, Vice President. I
Oh,
also want to.
Or did you have a question or?
No.
Oh,
no,
okay.
Just a comment. I also want us to take into consideration, we're talking about a volunteer organization here. We are talking about a volunteer organization here. So, given the work that they've already done, for us to ask them to go back and do even more work, that doesn't sit well with me. I think now the question becomes, right, is there a way for us to better communicate this and engage the community, right, going forward? I think there's an avenue for us to do that. I think that's already in place. I think Mr. John and staff know that this is work that needs to be done. But to pump the brakes now and ask this volunteer organization to go back and do even more of that work, that doesn't sit well with me.
Thank you. Councilmember Christopherson.
Thank you, Council Vice President. Well, you've opened a door for me to, from the conversation that has happened around this topic, it just seems like you've got a product. People love the trails that are already there. They say that the trails are reflected there. Some have been. And then you've got this great organization of the Friends of the Wells. It seems like the players are identified, and then it should be now on the constituents, not on Corbett, but the constituents, to make these connections, to understand what is already here. And staff has offered to make that possible. It's not like it's going to be in the ground next month. So I would agree with Councilmember Jones that it seems like it's moving in the direction that we need. And then the council's in front of us now is a yes for postponement, or a no would be we see these as being adequate for us to say, yeah, go forward from here. So, yeah, I thank you, Councilmember Jones.
Is there further discussion? Councilmember Worthman.
Thank you, Council Vice President. I don't disagree at all with Councilmember Jones, Councilmember Christopherson. I just can't put aside the intensity of the emails that I've been reading, of the people who showed up last night, of the petition signers. I want their energy to be behind this, not trying to put the brakes on. And am I seeing something different? Or does this seem like a plan that was like, hey, we're notifying you we're doing this, versus we want you to be a part of this process? Because I think the former is kind of what happened. And I would like to see their energy. One of the Corba members last night who spoke said, the success of this project rides on the shared collaboration with the neighborhood to make this happen. The success depends on that, and that's what I want to see. Because right now, I don't feel like that collaboration is there.
Thank you. Councilmember Schoen.
Thank you, Council Vice President. I just want to share that, thinking back to some of the proposed language that was provided to us from Friends of the Wells, they provided us some proposed amendment language, and some of it did reference a pause in implementation for 3 to 6 months. I think, or I guess I should double check the specific time frame. I believe it was 3 to 6 months. Based on the information that council has, that we heard last night in discussion with staff and discussion with Corba, implementation of this project won't happen for 3 to 6 months. So to your point, Councilmember Worthman, in terms of moving forward the directive to staff and to Corba to work collaboratively with the Friends of the Wells group, I don't see the need to postpone this agenda item until April. And so I guess I just wanted to share that perspective that I think we can be responsive to what we heard from the adjacent neighbors and from the Friends of the Wells group, and be sensitive to their desire to be involved. I think that's fair, for us to consider, but I don't think it necessitates the proposed postponement of this resolution, and so I won't be supporting this amendment, although I am very supportive of ensuring that the Friends of the Wells group is included as this project progresses.
Thank you. Councilmember Miller?
Thank you, Council Vice President. I appreciate Councilmember Schoen's comments. The only question or concern I have is that if we go ahead and then approve this, we can ask them to communicate with the Friends of the Wells, but then they are no under obligation to actually come to an agreement with them. And once this is agreed, that would kind of be past that. So that's my concern, although I appreciate your input there.
Councilmember Jones.
Yeah, I just would like to add to that point that I don't know in this situation any assurances could ever be made. You do the best you can, and you just hope that people show up and they participate in the process.
Thank you.
Can I add it all or no?
No, I'm not. That's not really the time for that. I'm just going to say a couple of things, and I appreciate the seriousness of the people who are taking this conversation and care for this place, and all of the energy and enthusiasm and work that's going into it. I think one of the reasons this conversation feels so difficult is that wistfulness for rugged land that Councilmember Miller brought up. We're sort of trying to reconcile different approaches to managing land, one which is a more sort of romantic, dwelling in its mystery, and the other is much more sort of rational and problem solving, and let's work together. And that's the way that city processes often are. They're derived from this kind of more Enlightenment thinking. We don't go about at the city being super romantic about things very often. But I do think that these different understandings of place that are kind of coming into conflict here have some places of intersection that could be really productive to work with. In terms of, it's really hard to feel heard if someone is looking at something totally different from you. If someone is looking at, like, let's create a map, and someone else is like, I missed my kids when we were growing up and walking through the woods together. Like, it's really hard to bring those together. And so one opportunity that I see and that I observe just listening to the beautiful testimony that we heard last night is I think there's universal agreement on this question of signage, wanting to welcome people, wanting people not to get lost, wanting there to be signs. And there's also been an offer, I believe, Corba has extended in terms of doing, if there's, maybe funds and everything, a willingness to do signage that's, marking those maidenhead ferns and things like that. I think there's a real opportunity to hear these neighbors who have deep connection with this place and have many different meanings to this place that I have no idea what they are, It would be wonderful if there could be an opportunity for some sort of creative placemaking around this signage. And by that I mean, maybe there'd be a collaboration with the Wisconsin Humanities Council or with university students or with our, I believe we still have a current city writer in residence position, in collecting people's stories and being able to honor some of the beautiful secret spots that they have with a marker or something like that, so that the meaning that they ascribe to this place can be upheld. And perhaps that might lead to some
very specific alterations in the map that are not too expensive to do, but just that sometimes I think just that process of feeling like someone else understands why this place means what it does to you, like that can sometimes open doors. That's just my my wistfulness and my romantic thinking on this topic. And my sense is that because Corba is a volunteer organization, we need to be really mindful of that, which is why I'm hopeful that, you know, some of this community work, which will be done, you know, as things are gearing up. So I don't plan to support the postponement, but I very much appreciate the spirit in which it was offered. So with that, is there any other comments? Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I do think I will support the postponement, and I appreciate that. I guess I will have a vote on it in my last meeting. Ultimately, if it does pass to be postponed, well, I guess either way. But I guess, like, as someone who has been on the citizen side of things many times in terms of trying to get involved in projects and proposals, whether they're in my backyard or not, like it's often, especially like for people that maybe haven't done it a lot, it's a very difficult thing to do. No matter how much intentionality that there is, like and all the good faith effort that everybody puts in. But like despite that, there's often like there's a point where you might learn about something and it's like, oh, it's a little bit too early for that type of specificity, that type of input. Like we're at this stage right now, but there will be time later, but then suddenly it's like too late, you know? And like, how do you know when those points in time are? And like, for me, that was not super clear, I guess. So like, that's maybe why there's some confusion here. And it's not really anybody's fault, you know. I think we have the opportunity to give this more time. So, and I know it's going to be a lot of work, and I feel especially for Councilmember Schoen, who has already put a lot of time into this, and you know, has a special connection as being a district member. But I guess like one of the ideas I have is like, I know it'll be winter time still, and the trails might not be very accessible, but like just having more people go out and like Corba members and neighbors and just go for walks and talk this through a bit might be another avenue. Is like organizing a time and location to meet in this magical place and hash some of these things out on a walk too might be an idea. But yeah, I think I'll be supporting the postponement because I think we could all use a little bit more time.
Thank you. Final thoughts? Oh, Councilmember Christopherson.
Council Vice President, I call the question.
Thank you. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Vice President Anderson?
No.
Oh, no, sorry. Oh my gosh. It's a long day.
It's okay.
Christopherson?
No.
Gregor?
Aye.
Johnson?
No.
Jones?
No.
Miller?
Aye.
Schoen?
No.
Worthman?
Aye.
Oh, and I wasn't sure if I needed to vote again. No, okay. So that motion fails, and so we can return back to our main motion. So then the question before us is to approve the Corba Trails plan for the City Wells site. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Christopherson?
Aye.
Gregor?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Jones?
Aye.
Miller?
No.
Schoen?
Aye.
Worthman?
No.
Anderson?
Aye.
And that passes, I think I have it 6-2, is that correct? Okay. Moving on to number 21, Donation for Transit Equity Day. This is a resolution authorizing the Community Services Department to accept a monetary donation of $300 from the local ATU 1310 for free transit rides in honor of Transit Equity Day on February 5th, 2024, and for marketing the event. Because this item amends the budget, a 2/3 vote of the elected members or 8 affirmative votes is required for adoption. Mr. Pettis.
Thank you, Council Vice President Anderson. So basically, we figured out how many, how much revenue in cash on average we get per weekday, and just did a yearly average. And the reason it's $300, it actually equated to $278, which may seem low, but most of our revenue is through passes, not through cash revenue on buses or cash fares. So the extra money is for a small amount of marketing that we'll do leading up to the day, and then the big thing is that it just amends the budget in a small fashion. But we're just looking for the resolution to authorize the $300 amendment.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, and I'm actually, do we have 8 people at the table right now? 7? Oh, okay, so we can wait. Should we just take a recess for a couple minutes? I mean, we've been here for like 3 hours. Would that be okay? I don't know how to do that.
But point of order,
Yep.
Council Vice President, I move
Yep.
for a 5-minute recess to allow
Yeah, 5-minute.
quorum to reconvene.
Would that be all right? 5-minute recess, everyone? Thank you. Yeah, time for cheese sticks and stretching, everyone. I know. That's because I'm like that stuff that like lets everything go crazy.
Recess bell.
I know what you mean.
I know, I've got the hours of like, I work yes at like 20 hours. But you have to do this every 2 weeks, so. I don't know if I told Faye. I know, it's just, it's a weird thing to do. Going on here.
I see more as an update. Does that make sense? Yeah, yeah. That's a That's where I'm at right now. Right now, we are at
I know, I'm the type of person, I like to be in bed at like 10 I get home like.
It's items 31 and 32 that was assigned to look
A lot
at.
going on this week too. My schedule is just. Yeah, that was like an easy show. It's okay. This is a lot more like, hang it in there. Who's like that? What's going on? I applied for grad school at APC. A bunch of different places, yeah. Michigan, Madison, and yeah, just so if all goes well, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, when Jerry comes back, I'll, yeah.
Is there anyone else? Feels like
Like 2 months.
I remember last summer I talked to you a little bit. So
One more.
If you have time, I get out on
All right, I better gavel us in. All right, recess is over. I think that's probably a better term for that, but here we are. Thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions about agenda item 21? Okay. If there are no questions, then this item is moved by Councilmember Worthman and Councilmember Christopherson. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, will the clerk call the roll?
Councilmember Gregor,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Schoen,
Aye.
Worthman, Anderson,
Aye.
Christopherson.
Aye.
And the item passes unanimously. Okay, the next on our agenda is item number 22, a resolution granting an access agreement to Sean Olson through part of parcel 101241 for access to a rear building of parcel 101216. This item was postponed from our December 12th meeting and changed from an easement to an agreement. Corley?
Good evening, council members. This item was originally before you on December 12th, 2023, but postponed due to staff recommendation. Between that time, the easement changed from a perpetual easement to an agreement license set to expire within 20 years. The change came from staff concern due to the perpetual nature of the original draft. The item before you today formalizes access that has been occurring at that location and sets it on a course of a limited timestamp. The agreement has been signed by the property owner and has been recommended by not only the Plan Commission, but the Waterways and Parks Commission. It is also has staff approval. I don't believe the grantee is here nope, definitely not here tonight, but I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? No questions, I don't think. Any discussion? Oh, sorry, I have to move this. Councilmember Greigert, this item is moved by Councilmember Greigert and Councilmember Schoen. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Schoen,
Aye.
Worthman,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Christopherson,
Aye.
Greigert.
Aye.
And that item passes unanimously. Okay, so the next 3 items that we will take all together. So we'll get some swift movement through our meeting. Mr. Lee?
Hello, this is for items 23, 24, and 25. They all kind of commingled together. The purchase agreement in question outlines the 2 easements as contingent, so that's why I requested them to become to you all at once. JJD Properties EC LLC purchased real estate property at 1305 Menominee Street during the permitting process for construction. It was found that part of the structure at Menominee Street encroached onto city land about a ½ foot. In order to ensure that the parcel at 1305 is a conforming parcel, the partial sale of land, which includes 1,864 square feet, is requested. This request was reviewed by the Waterways and Parks Commission at their December 6th meeting and recommended by the Plan Commission at the January 16th meeting as well. City staff recommends approval of the agreement and the declaration of excess land. The 2 easements attached to the sale are necessary to secure the city's interests in the area. The first of which is a permanent utility easement for nearby utility main, which runs adjacent to the area. The easement will allow for proper access for repairs or construction. The second easement is to secure access for the possible construction of a trail to run through the area. Both of these easements give about a foot setback from the current property line for 1305 Menominee Street. Both have also been given recommendation by the Plan Commission and by city staff. I'm happy to take any questions at this time for 23, 24, or 25. And the purchaser is here. A member of the purchasing group is here.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Councilmember Greigert.
Yeah, thank you, Vice President Anderson. I guess this is a kind of a random question, but where does the money go, like, that we receive from a sale like this, where it just, does it go like back into our, like, what kind of fund does it go into?
So this particular sale, the funds will go directly into the general fund. Then it'll go into just our fund balance.
Any further questions? Not seeing any. Thank you. Okay, so on a motion by Councilmember Miller and seconded by Councilmember Johnson, this item is moved. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none. And we can, one question for our city attorney. So can we vote on these all at once too, or was that just for our presentation purposes?
I would suggest individual votes, but on non-fiscal, well, actually this first one is fiscal, but we have to be able to ascertain votes, but on these ones that we anticipate unanimous consent, and especially given the hour, if you want to call for unanimous consent, be my guest.
Okay, all right. This is getting very fancy. I would like to call for unanimous consent on these items number 23, 24, and 25. Do we just say aye? Is that what we do?
Absent objection, it stands passed.
Are there any objections? Absent objections, it stands passed. All right, let's move on to item number 26. This is a resolution declaring part of land at 0 Short Street excess land and authorize the sale to American Materials LLC. And I see that Mr. Lee is here, but staff is requesting this item is being postponed.
At this time, there's current discussion between American Materials and city staff on the verbiage of the purchase agreement. We're looking for more substantial wording, so at this time, we're just going to postpone until we're able to work something out.
Thank you. Oh,
Thanks.
Mr. Lee?
So I was happy to move things along or suggest a way to do it with unanimous consent, but that was on 23. So we do at least need a mover and a seconder and an agreement that everyone unanimously consents on 24 and 5 as well.
Oh, okay. Rewind.
Remember that, though.
Okay, awesome. We will. Okay, so for item number 24, we'll have a motion made by Councilmember Jones and seconded by Councilmember Worthman. And I'd like to move this with unanimous consent. Without objection, it stands. And then for item number 25, by a motion made by Councilmember Christopherson, seconded by Councilmember Gregor, this item is moved. I'd like this to be by unanimous consent. Without objection, it stands. Did that work? Did the magic work? And on item number 26, this is what the resolution declaring the Short Street. This item can be postponed. This item is moved by Councilmember Schoen and seconded by Councilmember Miller. Is there a motion to postpone? The motion is made by Councilmember Miller. Is there a second? Second. Councilmember Schoen. This item can be moved with unanimous consent as well, without objection, or can it not?
No, sorry, perhaps I wasn't listening carefully enough to that, but was there a time certain that you were recommending, or when would staff suggest this return?
Given my short experience on this and my learning background on previous things, let's not put a timestamp on that, if that's all right with City Attorney Nick.
It's really whether it'll be okay with them, but so long as you're okay having it postponed until such time as staff feels it's ready to return, give us a little leeway on it, we'll have it as a bit of an open-ended postponement.
Okay.
For clarification, I do.
You do? Okay.
Thanks for being kind and rewinding.
Thanks for that 90s reference. I appreciate that. Okay. All right. So without objection, we can postpone this until staff brings it back. And I'm not seeing objections, so we can move along with by unanimous consent. Okay. Now we have item number 27. This is a resolution approving a final plat for the transit center located at 1414 South Farwell. Mr. White.
Thank you, council members. I promise to talk fast. So before you is the condo plat that sets the residential development of the space above the transit transfer center site. The plat as presented identifies two owners and references Unit 1 and Unit 2. Unit 1 would represent the space owned by the city. That area of Unit 1 is defined as the ground floor and the parking levels on level 2 and level 3 of the plat, except those areas noticed as common areas as part of Unit 2. The upper boundary of this Unit 1 is the lower surface of the concrete of the ceiling of Part 3, so basically the bottom of that transfer deck. Unit 2 starts at that plane of the transfer deck, the lower surface of the concrete, and extends vertically to capture all the residential space, and also extends 50 feet above the upper plane, is the 50 feet above the upper plane of the residential building roof. The common areas that were identified on the first floor, these are areas that are utilized by both Units 1 and 2. Examples of those would be the vestibules on first, second, third floor. There's a ground floor utility room, a trash room. That are some of these areas identified as common. There are also some areas that are identified as limited common elements. These are common elements, but are only utilized by, in this case, one of the two owning units. Examples of that would be the bicycle storage space. The developer has office space on the ground floor, and the developer also has a designated elevator space for the development above the transit center area. Just to kind of reiterate what's being done in the overall project, there are 88 units being offered within the residential space, 21 studios, 58 one-bedroom apartments, and 9 two-bedroom apartments. Parking spaces overall will be 135 spaces, of which 81 are reserved for residential, and 54 spaces will be reserved for the general, or will be available to the general public. This is 7 spaces more than what were originally available as part of the transit site. At this point in time, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there questions for Mr. White? I don't. Oh. Go ahead, Mr.
Thank
Go ahead,
you.
Chair.
Is this like the last thing we have to vote on before they can start construction, or are there some more steps?
There is a development agreement that will be the next step, and that will be the last phase. That will reference a few other things that have to be worked out. We're seeing that work being done on. City Attorney Nick and I had a meeting, and Mr. Keats had a meeting with the developers on that last week. So there'll be one other piece there, but this is the last piece that lets them start going for, it sets up for them to be able to get their building permits. We have all the material to start issuing building permits, so as soon as the agreement is signed, we can approve permits and they're ready to go immediately on that end of things.
Sorry to interrupt, but, it's getting late, but this is an important one, so I'll try to make sure my head is clear as well. But we have a development agreement. It is signed. All we're working on is a closing statement, which doesn't need to come back to City Council. So this is the document that creates the parcels that we'll be transferring, because it's a condominium, so envelopes, if you will, instead of pieces of grass, which a little bit, trickier to get in your head, but that's what we're really kind of doing. It's a subdivision of sorts, right? This one's just vertical, so you're creating a lot. That lot 2 will be the residential unit. What we're working on with developer, in addition to this, is then the closing statement, and we'll move to closing. We don't anticipate anything coming back to council between now and then.
Any other questions for Mr. White? Okay, seeing none, then on a motion by Councilmember Johnson with a second by Councilmember Jones, this item is moved. Any discussion? Oh, Councilmember Christopherson.
Thank you. How exciting. How exciting. Thank you.
All right, with that, would the clerk please call the roll? Oh.
Thank you. It'll be a recorded document, so I'd prefer a roll call. Thank you.
Councilmember Christopherson?
Aye.
Gregor?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Jones?
Aye.
Miller?
Aye.
Schoen?
Aye.
Worthman? And Anderson.
Aye. And that passes unanimously. Okay, up next is item number 28, a resolution approving the Sustainability Advisory Committee's 2024 annual work plan.
Good evening, City Council, Vice President Anderson. I'll try to make this short. So we have my fantastic planner, Katrina Berg, would have been here, but she's actually running the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee right now, so she's doubling up there. So she put these slides together, but we have a little bit of a progress report for Sustainability Advisory Committee. You guys directed about No Mow May, so that was very successful working with Jonah. And then also recently, towards the end of the year, you also had an agreement for a solar contract with Excel, about 1.3 megawatts of power that you authorized. And some of the things that are going to go on into the new work plan is obviously the zoning code that you're familiar with, overhauling that. This Navigator program, which you've allocated CIP money, which addresses kind of more of the energy side of affordable housing, so that can couple with what you also have with the Affordable Housing Fund. Some of the other things that are going on, the multi-hazard mitigation plan, the county's in the lead, city supports also with the Regional Plan Commission. Other work that we continually do is interface with different governments like the county sustainability, the university sustainability, the school district sustainability committee, and then also the Sustainability Advisory Committee participated in Jonas Earth Week last year and also is interested in doing that again this year, just before Earth Day over at the Brewing Project. So the work plan is in your packet, and I think that's all she had. If you have any questions about what's proposed for 2024, a lot of the big projects are the zoning code, as we're very into that already, and then also this Navigator program, which you've allocated CIP money for 2024. The item next will also authorize a grant to help fund that program. Any questions?
Oh, Councilmember Greger.
Thank you. This hiring of a sustainability coordinator is mentioned as on page 2 of the 2024 work plan, and I was wondering if you could maybe go into some detail as to like where that's at or how you feel that might be able to be accomplished. Obviously, there's the lead on it as like the city manager and finance, to try to figure out how to afford something like that. But so maybe other folks here would want to speak to it. But yeah, just that's one of the most exciting things I see on here as like something that's called out as like a goal. So just wanted to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, the origination of that is through the REAP plan that you guys approved in 2020. So having, as the needs for sustainability grow, having a dedicated coordinator or some sort of person overseeing that more is the idea here. But obviously, with operation expenses being very tight for the city, we would need to be creative about how to finance that. And so I think working with the city manager, finance director, they recognize the need too, but how can we actually fund that in an appropriate way?
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Other questions? All right. Thank you so much. And so now by a motion by Councilmember Worthman and Councilmember Christopherson, this item is moved. Discussion? Councilmember Christopherson.
Thank you, Council Vice President. This is another extremely productive and effective committee for the city, and always like to see their work plan come forward. There was just one piece that I noticed, and I just want to highlight that there was a goal to be available for projects that the council might ask for consultation. And I know that has come up several times in our work, wondering if they could be advisory. And I particularly appreciated seeing that piece. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, if there's no further discussion, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Greger.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Schoen.
Aye.
Worthman.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Christopherson.
Aye.
And that passes unanimously. Okay. On to item number 29, the resolution authorizing staff to apply for the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant to undertake the Energy Efficiency Navigator Program. Mr. Noel.
Okay, this item is straightforward. It's authorizing staff to apply for this grant. We're already entitled by it with the federal government. $130,000 been allocated to the city. This is earmarked in the capital improvement plan to offset costs for that Navigator program. And what we've looked at is that this money would go primarily to fund the administrator of the program, so that they're the, so to speak, like general manager, the assessor for energy improvements of these different properties. So that relieves staff from managing that program. Also vets projects because they're energy experts. Interface with staff as well to make sure that it's meeting city goals and accountability's sake. But ultimately, the funds would go probably 2/3. We're still working on a budget with this administrator. About 2/3 of the $130,000 would go towards their administration costs, their project management costs, the energy assessment costs and things like that, more soft costs. And then probably we're estimating around $30,000 would go towards maybe one or two projects that we could also have because the math doesn't quite balance out. So again, trying to use those federal dollars for those costs that go towards the soft costs, the administration, and the CIP dollars to stay local that actually have a benefit for local projects for affordable housing related to energy efficiency and your climate goals. So that is basically the point of applying for this grant.
Thank you. Any questions? I'm seeing none. Thanks so much. And with that, let's see, with a motion from Councilmember Gregert, seconded by Councilmember Schoen, this item is moved. Is there discussion? Not seeing any. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Schoen,
Aye.
Worthman, Anderson,
Aye.
Christofferson,
Aye.
and Gregor.
Aye.
And that passes unanimously. The next item is the resolution adopting the Shawtown Neighborhood Plan. Yep, Mr. Noah? Any questions for Mr. Noel about the Shawtown Neighborhood Plan? Councilmember Gregor?
Yeah, thank you, Vice President Anderson. Thank you, Mr. Noel, for all of your work on the plan with the neighbors. And I know it's been a long process, even just choosing which neighborhood to do next. So I won't ask you what that is. But I was wondering, we have a good beefy document, and there's a lot of great ideas in here. And how does, I'm just thinking like if there's like additional opportunities that people see after looking at this, or like how does that, does the plan really just get, is this something that the city council just saying that this conforms to our comprehensive plan, or like we feel like that it's congruent with it? Is that what we're voting on, as opposed to like any sort of changes to it?
Yes, good question, Councilmember Gregor. So yeah, that's the finding that needs to be made, that it's consistent with the comprehensive plan. If it's not, it needs to be called out and reconciled. So that's at the heart of the matter. But really, the neighborhood plan is an official document that lays out a guide for future projects, developments, and things like that. It doesn't rule out other projects that come up that the neighborhood identifies, or other neighborhoods that don't have a neighborhood plan. You might have seen the Northside Hill submit something as sort of a quasi-neighborhood plan. Citizens can bring projects to our attention at any point in time, so they don't need a neighborhood plan. But this is actually an official plan that the city recognizes. You guys actually have to approve because it becomes part of the comprehensive plan.
Thank you. Other questions? Okay, thank you so much. And then on a motion by Councilmember Miller, with a second by Councilmember Johnson, this item is moved. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Christofferson.
Thank you, Council Vice President. I would just say in my work with the Shawtown that this very accurately reflects their passion and their interest. Their concerns in the traffic is something that they speak of constantly. So as far as their support, it reflects my knowledge of that. And then in reading it, the only inconsistencies that I saw were ones that you called out, talking about double zoning and things that would be fixed in the zoning rewrite. So I would support this as being congruent with the comprehensive plan.
Thank you. Other thoughts? Okay, seeing none, could the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Jones,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Schoen,
Aye.
Worthman, Anderson,
Aye.
Christofferson,
Aye.
Gregor,
Aye.
and Johnson.
Aye.
And that passes unanimously.
The next item on our agenda is a resolution to accept the July 4th Celebration Committee's recommendations to continue to provide a fireworks show and to shift the fireworks launch site to the High Bridge. Are there any questions for Ms. Hirsch, or did you want to speak to that item? Okay. All right, if I'm seeing no questions, then the item is, a motion is made by Councilmember Jones and seconded by Councilmember Worthman, and the item is moved. Is there any discussion of this? Councilmember Miller, I saw
Thank
your
you,
light first.
Thank you, Council Vice President Anderson. I just want to thank the 4th of July Celebration Committee that met to discuss this. It contained many different parts of our community that come together and discuss what the best way to have a 4th of July celebration in our city is. I'll hopefully be looking forward to observing for the first time from the High Bridge, given the thunderstorm that passed over the High Bridge right at the celebration time last year. But I just want to thank all the people who put in the effort to come to this conclusion here today.
Thank you. Councilmember Worthman.
Thank you, Council President. I want to just thank the council for giving me the opportunity to serve on this ad hoc committee, bringing you this result. Councilmember Johnson was on it as well. I think that one of the things I realized going through this process is I just fundamentally have a different view of fireworks and the impact that they have in our community, both on families, on pets, on the environment, and my hope was that we would come forward with some different ideas on how to celebrate the 4th of July that didn't involve blowing things up. I guess I am a little bit in the minority when it comes to that view, but I do also have an inbox of residents who I represent who do share some of that concern and share some of the ways that fireworks have harmed their family in one way or another. So that's not reflected in here. Even though 1 in 5 people wanted something different, clearly a great majority of people want to continue to blow things up. So this report in front of you kind of gives some of those guidelines. It does acknowledge, which I appreciate, some steps that need to be taken to think about the health of people who are suffering from PTSD, to thinking about pets, our environment to some extent, which doesn't get a voice often in these conversations. So overall, I appreciate the work that went into this. I just fundamentally disagree that fireworks are something that we should continue to do. And I think one thing I do agree with people on, though, is that probably a bigger impact is private firework and illegal firework displays that happen in our community, and our inability as a city to really clamp down on that and to change it. And part of it is because so much of our resources are used to put on the major public displays. So one thing I would like to see is for us to shift and try to curb how much illegal fireworks get let off, because in some ways I think those almost have a bigger impact on people's lives. That's all I got.
Thank you. Other comments? I also want to extend my gratitude to everyone who worked on this issue. Like so many city issues, people have really different feelings about it, and as like any decision that we make, some people are going to be pleased, some people are going to be disappointed, but I think what matters most is the process, the way that we come together to talk about things as a community, and we saw some new solutions emerge. For instance, this idea of having, in addition to a fireworks celebration, an alternative event at the Pablo for people who wanted to do something different. And so I think that when we come together, we arrive at solutions that might not be the perfect solution for everyone, but they show the strength of our community, that we work together and we continue to talk even when we disagree. So I'm just really grateful for this whole process and for everybody who participated. And if there's no further comments, if the clerk could please call the roll.
Councilmember Miller.
Aye.
Schoen.
Aye.
Worthman.
No.
Anderson.
Aye.
Christofferson.
Aye.
Gregor.
No.
Johnson.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
And that resolution passes 6-2, if I counted correctly. Okay. Our next item is item number 32. This is a resolution affirming support for refugees placed in Eau Claire through the Federal Refugee Resettlement Program. Councilmember Miller, did you want to speak to this?
I would, yes. Thank you, Council Vice President. I know we had a long meeting here, but I just want to explain this resolution and why I'm asking for support for it here today. Some council members may be confused of why the resolution is on the agenda since council has no role in the refugee resettlement. What is the purpose of this resolution? For a bit of history, City Council issued a similar resolution in 2021 to welcome Afghan refugees who were staying at Fort McCoy. And actually, I used some of that same language from that one in this year, and that one passed on the consent agenda. It didn't even come up for discussion. So it was very non-controversial to pass that one back then. And I thought we might want to examine this a little more closely since we'll have some refugees closer to home. There is no operative language in this resolution. It could be thought more of a proclamation, but for policy. Today, I'm asking for your vote for this resolution for two reasons. One is to give a voice to the majority of residents who have not been clearly heard, and the second is to offer support for people who will be coming to our community. The City Council has heard many public comments over the past 4 months regarding the plan to relocate refugees in our city, but having no role, we have taken no action. However, in the past month, the dynamic has changed when both the Eau Claire County Board and the Chippewa County Board brought forward resolutions either against refugees coming to our region or against the process of how they come. These came as a surprise because county boards have no more say in this matter as city councils do. At this Eau Claire County Board meeting, a number of people there were speaking, about equal number were speaking for and against. However, while I was there, I heard that many public comments were written, submitted against the resolution. And after the meeting, I went and found those public comments published. And over 200 spoken and written comments were published, and over 90% were in support of refugees and the refugee process. However, since then, the narrative in the press and the community has been dominated by a small minority opposed to the planned refugee resettlement. But 90% of people writing in to support something is huge. People don't go out of their way to say they like something, but 90% of the people who wrote in, over 200 people, did. So that's the number one reason I brought forward this resolution, was to give this 90% of the people who support the process a voice to be heard. The second reason is because, can you imagine having to flee your homeland, live in a camp for who knows how long, move to a new country, and upon arrival, hear that you weren't wanted because you might be a drain on community resources, or that your planned arrival initiated a call for the pause of refugee programs across the state. Refugees who come here need to see that they are welcomed and that there was a voice that spoke out to support them and to give them hope in this new land. That's the second reason I'm asking for your support for this resolution, a positive affirmation that all people, regardless of place of origin, are welcome in Eau Claire. The resolution has a bunch of whereases, which kind of gives the history of refugee programs in Wisconsin. However, the crux of the resolution is the last bit, and I'll read that out loud. Now, therefore, be resolved by the City Council of the City of Eau Claire that we welcome all people to our community and city and encourage support for refugees, a group of people in need of safety and support as they begin their new lives in this land of opportunity. And if you agree with that statement that we are welcoming the city, then I ask for your yes vote to support this resolution. One note, Councilmember Mboga was going to be the second. I would like a second. I believe there is a friendly amendment from Councilmember Schoen, and perhaps you can speak to that as well.
Okay, so you'll be seconding this since Councilor Mboga is not here?
Correct, yes.
Okay, wonderful. Would you like to speak to your friendly amendment?
Yeah, yep. So council, you should all have a copy of the amendment. And just a quick note, or excuse me, you have a copy of the resolution in front of you with my friendly amendment in red bold writing. It's just adding a whereas clause within the resolution. For those who don't have a copy of my proposed addition in front of them, maybe, or who are listening in on the session, it would be proposed to be inserted as the 5th whereas clause, following the whereas statement that begins whereas as a nation of immigrants. So following that clause, my amendment reads, whereas we are on the native lands of the Ojibwe, Ho-Chunk, and Dakota peoples who have been inhabiting this land long before Europeans began to settle it. And so I just want to share that I felt that this resolution is incredibly important, and if we're going to bring forth an affirmative resolution for our support of refugees in the city of Eau Claire. I just felt it was really relevant, and we would be remiss to not take note of the fact that we are on native land. And so I bring that as a friendly amendment, which has been, I believe, accepted by Councilmember Miller.
Thank you. So this has been accepted, and so this is
Yes.
this is what we're voting on as this paper before us. Is there any questions or any discussion?
One point I'd like to add that I think you all received that the Eau Claire Chamber of Commerce also strongly recommended approval of this resolution as well.
Thank you. Other discussion? Seeing none, then will the city clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Schoen,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Christofferson,
Aye.
Gregor,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
And that item passes unanimously.
Council Vice President.
Missed Workman, sorry.
Oh,
I'm going to vote aye.
thank you. Okay, so that passes unanimously now. Okay, turning the page to item number 33. We're in ordinances, everyone. Item number 33, ordinance amending chapter 8.05.050 entitled Smoking Prohibited in Specific Outdoor Locations of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Eau Claire. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Plaza? Okay, then we can leave you be. This item is moved by Councilmember Christofferson and Councilmember Gregor. Is there discussion? Councilmember Christofferson.
Thank you, Vice President. I am supportive of this. I appreciated last evening in conversation about the wondering about enforcement, but having this ordinance on the books emboldens our citizens simply to protect their own airspace. And I think that's a significant step, and I support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Councilmember Miller.
Thank you, Council Vice President. In the informational material we provided last night, it stated that cigarette smoke is detectable, or I'm not sure the exact phrasing, within 23 to 25 feet. And this resolution only says 20 feet. I would propose, like an amendment, to change it to 30 feet.
Okay. I saw Councilmember Worthman second that first, so that one goes to Councilmember Miller and Councilmember Worthman. And did you want to speak to it at all? Okay. Is there any discussion of this amendment?
I would support that. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I wasn't
Go ahead. It's fine. Okay. Could the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Worthman.
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Christofferson,
Aye.
Gregor,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Schoen.
Aye.
And that amendment passes, and now we need to vote on the main motion. So it's still item 33. And any additional discussion? Seeing none. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice President Anderson,
Aye.
Christofferson,
Aye.
Gregor,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Schoen,
Aye.
Worthman.
Aye.
And that passes unanimously. Okay, up next is an ordinance to rezone property from R1 to R1B located at 3536 West Folsom Street. Are there any further questions for Mr. White, or can we let him be too? I'm not seeing any further questions. Then on a motion by Councilmember Schoen and Councilmember Miller, this item is moved. Is there any discussion? Oh, thank you, Councilmember Christofferson.
Thank you, Council Vice President. Since 2018, I've been paying attention to the mobile home parks. There's one in my district that is not thriving, and have always imagined that there is another better iteration of manufactured homes in a community. And this is such a great, innovative, insightful collaboration between very successful builders to come up with something else that really does address affordable homes. So that would be my first point. And the second point would be typically in the past whatever time, you see homes that are being built that are of a particular size. I live in a bungalow that's like 750 square feet. Very adequate, very livable. It does have a basement, but it's as though that is not popular. But if you look at the west side, if you look at, that's what's there, are these small homes that you can start there and stay there. So I just think this is going to be the beginning of something very trendy for Eau Claire.
Thank you. And Councilmember Gregory.
Thank you, Vice President Anderson. Yeah, when I was on the Plan Commission, and it was probably when we were on together, there was a proposal to like connect the streets that kind of dead end behind this project and build a lot of housing, and it wasn't necessarily going to be as inclusive of housing as this is. So that's an improvement, and then it also like doesn't seem, this project hasn't really generated the pushback that that we saw in the past. And I think the most exciting thing is that, like back at that time, like I went to go check out the mobile home park that was there and get a lay of the land, because I don't really go down dead ends like all that often or into mobile home parks necessarily. And it was an immaculate place. Very well maintained. The grounds were very, intentional. So I see this being very complementary to what is already there, not only in terms of like nearby houses like being, still having the feel that they have now, but also just adding to the community that is already strong in that park. So yeah, I'll be supporting it.
Thank you. And seeing no other discussion, would the city clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Christopherson,
Aye.
Gregor,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Schoen,
Aye.
Worthman, Anderson.
Aye, and that item passes unanimously. Okay, we're on to announcements and updates, everyone. One quick announcement I have to make is, I think we're all continuing to think about the closure of Sacred Heart and Prevea. It's still on our minds. We may know people who are losing work or losing a provider. I know Council President Berge is very concerned about this as well. And I have been in touch with the chamber, who is developing an action team on that, and I will attend a meeting with them next week, and I will happily report back. I'm sure staff may probably attend too, but I think the best that we can do is to stay in conversation and use that beautiful collaborative problem solving that we have in this community that we've seen over and over again tonight to support all the folks who are impacted by this. So please keep all of those folks in your thoughts. I don't know if the city manager has any announcements.
Sure. Just to start off, to piggyback on what Vice President Anderson said and President Berge said yesterday, that we have been thinking a lot about what we learned yesterday. It was surprising and sad to learn about the planned closure, and our hearts really go out to the more than 1,400 employees and their families who work there, and of course all of the patients. And we have, as I'm sure you all have, been reflecting about how Sacred Heart has been such, and St. Joe's have been so integral to the fabric of the community. Sacred Heart has been around for 135 years. So it was there when Eau Claire was just a little baby community, and it's been there with us all that time. And I would love to know how many people in Eau Claire were born in Sacred Heart or had a child born in Sacred Heart. We took a poll just at the department head meeting, and it looked like about a third of the room had been born at Sacred Heart. So those connections are really deep and really wide. And then Privé is also an important partner, even though it's a newer entrant. So we, as the Vice President said, we will be working really closely with the Chamber, both Eau Claire County and Chippewa County, Altoona, which has Privé property, and the community insurers to figure out a path forward. We know that it's not an option to allow our community to lose those amazing providers and all the different staff. We want. It affects both our residents and about a 50-mile radius. We're the center of healthcare in the area, as well as retail and entertainment and culture. And so we will double down and just be absolutely determined to ensure that we continue to be that vibrant center that takes care of all of our residents and also is a resource for the whole region. So we will stay in touch with what we can do to tackle that big challenge ahead. And so, yes, stay tuned.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to share events, too. Tomorrow's Oh What a Night. You can go celebrate the completion of this long meeting. On Thursday is a BIPOC committee meeting, so if people do want to go attend those, we would love to have you. That's on Thursday. Then on Monday, January 29th, we are having a City Council administrative meeting to talk about housekeeping type topics. And then on Saturday, February 3rd, is a neighborhood summit leadership training for our neighborhood associations and anyone else who's interested in attending. And thank you guys for your perseverance in this long meeting.
Oh, Councilmember
I would just like to encourage council members to put that training date out on your social media so that people in the neighborhoods, even if they're not neighborhood associations, but certainly the neighborhood associations need to be aware of this training because it's for their benefit to lead and create a more sustainable, vibrant association. So people need to have that placed in front of them several times.
Thank you. With that, we're adjourned. Thanks so much, everyone.